And we're live. Hello, everybody. I am here, Mr. Chip, and I am with the awesome, this way, with the awesome Raffaela, hence known the Militant Vegan. I think you have seen her videos. She's very well known for her style activism and for her passion towards saving animals and stopping this animal holocaust, right? And yeah, today we're gonna have a nice conversation. And if you guys have any questions, please ask them in the chat. Maybe we'll gather some of them. But also, I think towards right before I do the usual questions that I normally do, I want to put a section where we will look through your questions. So if you have some nice questions, make sure you save them for the end, I guess. Well, not the end, but like almost the end. Okay. Hello, Rafaela. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm fine. I have actually been struggling for 1.5 hours now, having an internal crisis because I wanted a new profile picture. And sometimes these little actions of change, they reflect something in my mentality that is changing. So um, it kind of affected me emotionally, and I struggled so hard to get it right, but I'm happy now. So these are the things that you deal when you take outreach against a Holocaust online. You have to fight with marketing. But yeah, those are the good and the bad sides, aren't they?
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Indeed, that is one of the things. That's also why I'm wearing a tank top, and I think I'll start wearing a tank top more often because, yeah, like it's insane. People have these preconceptions about vegans, and like we gotta squash those preconceptions and get people out there. Yeah. Mm.
Yes,
Okay.
show the vegan biceps. Do it.
Show the bicep. Yeah.
Very good.
I actually I'm when I go in the gym, I have had people approach me and ask me how come I'm so strong, but I always abstain from saying it's because I'm vegan
Yeah, you
because I don't
shouldn't.
want them, yeah, because I don't want to get them the false information. I say, well,
Perfect.
I'm strong because I eat the right food, I'm vegan, and because I train a lot. That's
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I think it's very important that we break stereotypes. Um, yeah, so in the gym, and especially if you're a well-built man, we have to take care of our health. We have to take care of what we look like and how we articulate ourselves. And I love that you care about language and emphasize morality over having like this golden godlike thing that people say like, yeah, I'm vegan and that makes me healthy. That's so wrong, and it's a stab in the back to the animals too, because once people figure out it's not about health, it's not about the environment, they will fall back into exploiting them. So we should never start with this washed down message of veganism.
I completely agree. I completely agree. You know, in fact, the one, by the way, the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you was because in your last video, you said something like somebody asked you if you watch the football or something like that, and you said no, it's stupid. And I'm like, oh my god, I like her so much now. Like my appreciation of you just grew tremendously when you said that. And then I don't know. Then you said some things that I'm like, oh my god, okay. You always seemed smart to me, but like you always seem to have this scientific skeptic approach to things. Are you a scientific skeptic, by the way?
Well, I guess you kind of have to be generally skeptical if you turn vegan in a non-vegan world. It's like finding out that the Father Christmas doesn't exist or that he kills seal babies. I don't know. So it needs
Yeah.
some kind of awakening push. I didn't have anyone come up to me and tell me about the animal holocaust. It kind of came through following people online. We can get into more details later if you want to, just a general start. So yeah, it was more about the health thing, and it was a harsh awakening and a big skepticism. I don't know if you know the word dystopia.
I know the word dystopia.
Yeah.
I have at least one day per week when I feel it pretty
I'm
hardly.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the people who might be listening who don't know, it's like waking up feeling like you're in a dystopian book world. And for somebody who doesn't know what dystopian it means like you have a very dark feeling of the world being evil and against you. And suddenly, when you turn vegan in a non-vegan family, in a non-vegan circle of friends, there is this darkness that you realize is in people, this brutality, following along a cruel mass rather than reflecting on your own mistakes and actions. And that kind of hit hard. And you have to be able to accept that pain, and you have to be able to be skeptical of your own actions and the actions of the people surrounding you to be vegan, to become vegan, if there's nobody who's like giving you a bitch slap of of clarity. So that's definitely something that I think I inherently have. And it started with being critical of the health system. Like, my family is a family of doctors, and everyone's like normally normal overweight. Like, they're not fat, but they're like pudding a bit. My mom didn't do any exercise since she had me. She just started a few years ago again. She was never an unattractive woman, but she always felt uncomfortable in her body. I never thought she was ugly. Nobody ever thought so, but she did have those 2 or 3 kilos too much, like everyone has, quote unquote. And I just heard a lot of moaning coming from non-vegan doctors and in my family too, like, oh, we're overweight, we shouldn't eat that, but always on a kind of humoring side, but then still standing in front of the mirror being unhappy. And I started to think, if those people are health people, how come they don't know how to be healthy and feel comfortable in their skin? Like, who should if they don't? So that's the kind of first kind of skepticism that started me to get into overthinking even my eating habits. And I just didn't want to be the kind of person. I knew I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. And I did become a doctor, but I didn't want to be a doctor um, that was unhealthy or that believed in the same diet myths as my patients and got the same disabilities and diseases. I thought that was kind of shit. So yeah, and this skepticism of food choices and being aware of what you eat, I think that ultimately led me to broadening this kind of skepticism, not only to the food on my plate, but also the industry behind it and all my consumer choices. So it's definitely the skepticism. um, Bringing it back to the football example that you just had, when the person came up to me and asked me mid outreach, do you watch football? I was like, fuck no. And then the conversation led straight to, but you must believe in God, you must believe in something. It was like,
I thought
it's as stupid as watching football. Like, I can watch football for the aestheticism of the skills, but being like all patriotic, like, we won yesterday. I was like, no, you were eating chips on your sofa. You didn't do shit. Those football players don't even know you're alive. Um, but yeah, it's for me the kind of ideology that people have with their football team is comparable to religious dogma. Yeah, definitely.
it is, and I think it's a feeling of belonging that people get from it. That's what I tend to believe. Because otherwise I have no other understanding of why people support one team or the other, and they go so fanatically about it. And I actually have a question about the feeling of belonging and veganism. But you know what you just said is interesting, because for you, you said dystopian feels kind of like a dark feeling where people are against you, where the world is against you. For me, dystopia is more like, why are people so, like, I don't want to say dumb, because it's not dumb, but there's a word like ignorant. Why are people so ignorant? That's the word, I think. Like, for me, the dystopian world is when the world is extremely ignorant, and not just about, like, about the issues that affect them, but also the issues that affect others, which is the most ignorant and the worst type of ignorance, isn't it? Because, like, you can be ignorant if you smoke all day if you want, and it's your health, but the minute you're ignorant and you do something that affects others, then that's fucked up, like, you should change, and you shouldn't just be ignorant about it, right?
So your question is, why are people like that?
My dystopian world means, why the hell are people like this? Yeah, my dystopian world makes me feel like I'm different, but not in a, oh my god, a nice way. It makes me feel like I'm the normal one, and everybody's
Mm.
which is weird to me. Like, I'm like it should be normal that when your actions affect others, that you care about your actions, right? It's as easy as that.
Yeah, obviously we feel like we're sane and the others are sick, but I think for people who haven't yet reflected the system, that thought goes vice versa towards us. But it's just more comfortable for them to stay unreflected since they feel sane and everyone around them follows along with their actions. So it's easier, it's
Yeah.
more comfortable. They don't have to take the blame. They can hide behind a mask. They don't have to admit to a mistake, becoming vegan greatly aligns with the ability of being able to publicly lose face and publicly admit a mistake. And that is something that maybe 5% of people can do, like, on the spot. And for all other people, and that's how my activism, my radical activism is shaped. It comes with a sleeper effect. It comes like, I hope I'm not like disrupting all the questions that you still have, but I could talk for hours on every single one of these topics. But when it comes to awakening masses, I really do think that my activism, which is very radical, which tells people that they're hypocrites, it's never aimed at the ultimate goal of making the person that I'm talking to in that moment to go vegan. Like, I lost that hope. I don't believe in that anymore. I know everything I say is as logical as I can make it, and oftentimes they even say that I'm right, or they bite the bullet on absurd examples. And obviously people would only say that they would eat their own son when they won't admit that they're wrong. So for me, that's a win. But I don't
I see
believe
what you mean.
anymore that most people with my kind of activism will go vegan on the spot. But putting it online and having them admit to eating their fucking child, maybe even in front of their child, the lunacy, imagine. I think that leaves traces, and I definitely think it leaves traces in people who watch these clips of literal, I can't, it's such a grave example for me, because a mother said I can eat her son in front of her child. People watch that and people go vegan through that. So they awake by the absurdity of the sleeping masses around them.
Because they
Because,
don't want to associate with them, or
yeah,
is it
because it's
because,
even
yeah?
more hurtful to associate with that kind of logic, with that kind of mass, than the pain of admitting to a mistake. And I think my job as an activist is to flick that pain from one side to the other. I know it's painful to become vegan in a non-vegan world, because it always goes with even a single comment. Oh, you have to eat a steak. You're a soy boy, and the whole having to change your eating habits. That's not comfortable. I have to make it more uncomfortable to stay non-vegan, and that's the pressure that comes from society and societal guilt that I give people.
I see. I see. Well, uh, I think let's get into the questions, because actually you answered already one of my questions, and it feels like this is the coming up section of the video.
Hmm.
So perfect. Okay, well, let's start. We don't have to stay too long. I really want to talk about activism more and more with you, but let's just get a bit of perspective. I think a lot of people already know it, but it's nice to have a conversation about it either way. So how long have you been vegan? What got you to be vegan? And what, like, if you can remember the specifics of it, that's pretty interesting to me always.
Yeah, I'm going to be open about it. I've had a couple of interviews in German throughout the last 3 years on exactly that topic, and I can go like in standby mode and recite my how I became vegan, why I'm vegan, why you have to be vegan thing in German, like in my sleep at 3 a.m., no problem. But this is actually the first time that I would be covering it in full, if you give me the time, if somebody's interested in English. So bear with me. If
Let's
it's
do it.
not, thanks. So I think with 16, 17, I already mentioned it, I became aware of my eating habits, and that most people surrounding me, especially as a young woman, were overweight, were unhappy with what they ate and their exercise, especially my mother, who is a doctor. Yeah, and I wondered why that is. So I read up a lot on plant-based diets. My reading up started with following influencer girls who were more than anorexic, eating only bananas on Instagram. But I mean, you have to get your information from somewhere. So with 16, 17, I kind of got very much into this whole plant-based food culture on Instagram. And it wasn't too long that I spent time with the only banana anorexic girls that I discovered, Dr. Michael Greger. And I think that was actually the first time that I actually read upon plant-based nutrition science, and that's actually a huge science topic which you don't
Interesting.
cover in med school. So ask any doctor in Germany, in Austria, I think in the whole of Europe. I had 0 hours on food and nutrition science in med school in 6 years, when 80% of diseases are reversible, sorry, not reversible, but at least treatable and definitely preventable through
Preventable, I
uh,
would say. Yeah.
through a better nutrition, which goes hand in hand most of the times with a rather plant-based diet. I'm not here to say, just for the record, that eating meat or always will make you sick, that every piece of dead flesh or excretion from a cow will make you sick. And we shouldn't be that kind of vegan, because that is just not factually true. You can be very healthy as a non-vegan, and if somebody states, yes, but the average vegan is healthier than the average non-vegan, that is true too, but that usually is true because the average vegan reflects on more than just their consumer choices when it comes to food. They don't smoke, they smoke less, they drink less, they have they are more aware, I would say. I think that is, I don't have the study, but I think you could generally just say that. And I think that is exactly the confounding factors that also lead to better health outcomes for vegans in general. But that being said, I read a lot about nutrition. I found out, hey, what is veganism actually? I definitely thought that it was for health and for environment reasons for years. So when somebody asked me why I ate rather plant-based or even vegan, I told them to look sexy when I'm naked. That was literally what I said, because I was a pick-me vegan through and through. I just wanted to get that topic brushed off, and um, I did want to teach people about healthy eating, because I defined myself through a very low BMI. When I was 16, 17, I weighed 9 kilo less than I do now. And I don't think that I'm overweight or in the need of losing 9 kilograms. So yeah, I definitely overtook it, but I overcame whatever bordering eating disorder I had back then through plant-based diet too. So from 17, 18 on, I defined myself as vegan, unknowingly even joining like groups on Facebook, Vegan Vienna and stuff. They kicked me out since then, but that's a different topic. And I I I didn't know that it's about the animals. I knew that it was somehow, in an abstract way, better for the animals if you didn't eat them. Surprise! But I never thought it was like this radical movement against slavery, against injustice, against this massive holocaust. Like the fitness girlies that you follow, they once in a month maybe post a cute little cough and say, that's why I drink oat milk. And it does work in your brain, but it worked just tiny little droplets. And of course, don't want to put the blame on them. I don't. But I could have looked more into it. I didn't have the pressure from outside. I wasn't confronted with speciesism in the way that I now want to confront the youth. So I kind of was stranded on this pick me vegan island for 5 or 6 years. And I define pick me vegans as people who say, I'm not that kind of radical vegan. No, you can eat meat. I even ate the meat of people who left something on their plate, because I thought, oh, might as well eat it. It won't hurt my health to do this now and again. Or when I ate treats, they weren't vegan because treats aren't healthy anyway. So might as well get the non vegan ones. And I think it's incredibly dangerous, because for years I gave people surrounding me the idea that this was what a vegan was, a not
Healthy.
very healthy environment, not very consistent. When I was drunk, I ate a donor afterwards, even though I called myself vegan. So I think I was doing worse for the animal rights movement than a non-vegan would have, because I watered down the message, I spread false information, and I wasn't giving the animals a voice in any way. No, I actually made fun of them. I think I actually said things like, I'm not vegan for the animals, I'm vegan to look sexy naked. I I regret it now. I did not understand the urgency of the situation. That came a couple years later. So, after having spent multiple discussions with other students and even professors throughout my med school, many of them being greatly overweight and thinking that all vegans die from vitamin B12 deficiency or a lack of protein, I kid you not. The 50-kilo overweight orthopedic doctor who regularly ate 2 donors and drank 2 beers in a night shift before operating on people's bodies told me um, that he sees vegan patients who die of protein deficiency.
How? I don't think there's any case of that ever happened. Like maybe
No,
anorexic people,
no.
but that's not a protein
Yeah,
deficient. That's just people not eating
yeah,
enough.
exactly, exactly. I remember that day. A short anecdote. You can stop me whenever. Like I said, I feel a million of them. So there was I often, as soon as I went vegan, when I was vegan, then I will get to how I came. Then I was in the hospital and I tried to educate doctors on speciesism and veganism. And there was this other doctor who I thought was open to the message, but he actually just wanted to fuck me. Great, thank you.
Oh,
Anyways, I told him about the vegan thing and I wanted to show him Gary Yourofsky's speech. So he had this little yellow post-it, and because he didn't have his phone with him, just the phone for the hospital thing. I told him when he goes back to his room now that what he should look up. And he wrote on one side of the speech, he wrote Gary Yourofsky, best speech ever. And then I got a call. I had to do something with a patient. And in the meantime, he seems to have taken up the orders of the other doctors, what they wanted to order. So an hour later or something, we all come together again in the eating room. The guys ate their doner. I left the room again. I came back again. And what do I find? Next to his Dean's Tandy, because he was on the toilet, there was the yellow sticker with the Gary Yourofsky thing. And on the other side, he wrote 2XXL doner. It was like,
w- to, to what?
two
I'm sorry.
XXL, like plus supersized donor. He wrote that
Ah,
as a
okay.
to order, and on the other side of the sticker, it read Gary Yourofsky, great best speech ever. I was like, fuck you. I hailed that, and I was like, you understood nothing. Like, fuck you. That's just these kind of things happen so often. They don't give a fuck. Doctors do not give a fuck. They are the worst in the system because they are so high praised by all, and they're so comfy in their white coat, and they think they know everything, even though they have zero idea of nutrition and they have even less idea of ethics. And humans are the best, and it was terrible. So I became vegan, anyways. That was very many of these kind of situations and even fights with other non-vegan students in my it was my last what's that we were celebrating my here you're a doctor now, what's that called in English, my diploma, I guess.
Ah, okay.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was after Corona kind of passed and we could finally invite another family because before it wasn't allowed to invite two families to a home. So we invited an old school friend of mine and his mother, who was also a doctor and anesthetician. And yeah, we ate non-vegan food. We actually ate noodles with cream sauce, and the my mother's boyfriend back then had shrimps in cream sauce, and we ate a lot of non-vegan desserts. So like I said, I was very pick me, and hey, we had something to celebrate, and this Italian place doesn't have vegan stuff, so might as well get the cream noodles, at least they're vegetarian. And yeah, we ate that, and afterwards we were sitting together, my mother, her boyfriend, this anesthetician mother, and my old school friend, and we kind of started talking about games, and we had this idea game going around. If you were a dictator and you could change something in Austria, what would you do? So when it was my turn, I said I would prohibit the consumption of animal products because it's better
Okay.
for the environment and it's probably better for the society's health. That is what I would change. And I wouldn't use this reasoning now. I would, of course, prohibit it, but I would use it with the reasoning of stopping animal slavery. But that was what I said because I knew it would be better, even though we had just eaten non-vegan food. And keep in mind, it was a game, but my mother's boyfriend, he got like red hot, meat flaky. I had never had that kind of temperamental discussion with a non-vegan before, but because usually I use the health and environment arguments, so it wasn't as a personal attack to them as this was. Even though I still had used the health and he was like a whole new level. He got all red and was like tense suddenly, and he was like, "You can't prohibit our meat. It's our meat. We've always done that." And he
Wow.
started throwing level 0 arguments against me. And I was sat there flabbergasted, like, Jesus, we're just playing a game. And I started like argumenting, yeah, but the environmental benefits, blah, 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 and cholesterol and blah, blah, blah. But he just got louder and angry. And then he said, we've always done that. And I kind of I couldn't formulate. I wasn't eloquent at all
Yeah.
on this topic, and I was like, that sounds like something that people used to say for slavery. And then he said, you can't compare that to slavery. They're just animals. And him saying they're just animals, I think that was the last drop on something that I knew. And everybody who's listening who might not be vegan, I don't know, maybe someone who's listening was not vegan. That was the last drop that it took to make me realize what non-vegans carry as a mentality towards animals. They're just animals. And I think I said something like, they said the same thing about Black people or even in the Holocaust. And that word, especially the word Holocaust, that made his trigger go like even louder. Like, yeah, you
It's a
can't compare that.
very, yeah,
You
it's a very
can't
sensitive
compare
word.
that to slavery or to the Holocaust. They're just animals. And he kept repeating that. And I was like, Jesus, what have I done? I suddenly all these words that the influencer girlies posted every holy days, the cow milk, cow breast milk, baby cow milk, or even Frida the banana girls, you have to leave mama cow and baby cow alone. Like it suddenly clicked. The urgency wasn't there before, but then suddenly it clicked, and I was like, no, this is we this is wrong. We did something wrong. I looked at my plate with the noodles and the last of the cream that was still there. I was like, this is wrong. And the whole evening was suddenly like becoming louder, and the mother of my friend, the anesthetician, she said something along the lines of, oh, I have these plant-based colleagues, and they always have to eat so much salad, and they can't get their iron. Like, no idea. Overweight herself, of course, but even ethically, we somehow landed to, but the people in Africa with the goats, do you want to take their goats away? And
Oh
a
God, all
chicken
these.
is worth less than a human. I didn't have any way of actually extracting the arguments that they were making, the appeal to tradition, the whataboutisms, the species. I couldn't put it into words, and I sat there against these four people, and the blah 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 blah, and I was like, but vegan, and I couldn't. Like my lips were quivering, my eyes were tearing. I just knew that this was wrong. They're just animals. They're just animals. They're just animals, and I couldn't articulate it, and it hurt me. It hurt me bad, especially because I couldn't put into words why the Holocaust comparison should be wrong or is right in
Yeah.
my opinion, and is valid and important. And then the boyfriend of my mother said something that really was disgusting. He said, people like you are the reason why things like slavery exist, because you tell other people what to do.
What?
And
No.
and now I would be able to say, look, people like me are the reason why things like slavery stop, because we go against the violent mass. And
Exactly.
people like you who believe that others are worth less are the exact reason why things like slavery exist. And it's not even a metaphor. You sick piece of shit, you literally enslave animals to have their heads cut off. I couldn't say that back then. I wasn't
Yeah.
confident enough on the topic. I wasn't eloquent enough on the topic. And the whole thing, like I said, we were literally celebrating my diploma, and it kind of escalated against a Raffaela is a radical vegan. Congratulations. No, it wasn't. So I remember my mother wanted to de-escalate, but I was like, Jesus, did you just hear what your boyfriend said about me? I think I got that out, but nothing more. And then I drove my friend's mother and him home. They were talking about how a chicken is worth less than a single sperm that had fused with a, what's the word in English?
Like this, the you mean the egg of the woman? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
with
ov
a
or the
female egg and a sperm
yeah, the female
just
egg.
having been fused in that very
Ovo.
second, because it's a human, is worth more than a live chicken. And I was like, okay, I think we had that part of the discussion, and I asked them, if I drop a petri dish with that in it, or I take a chicken and I cut its head off, what is worse? And they said the petri dish. And I couldn't, I was at a loss for words. I just knew, what the fuck were these people saying? So I drove them home, and I remember driving home, not saying a word. I went to my apartment. I wanted to vomit, and I had a boyfriend back then, who is not my boyfriend anymore. And I told him about it. I told him about it on the phone, and he lived only a couple streets away. And when you're teary and you want to get stuff off your chest, you want to run to the boyfriend and tell him. So I came to him, and I had already told him, yeah, we just had a fight with my family, blah, blah, blah. I remember telling him about it. And when I came up to the Holocaust thing, I think I was like laying on his chest, telling him about it. In that moment, he didn't fucking touch me anymore. He was like, "You can't say that. You can't compare the Holocaust to anything." He was
I
like
can
a big
compare
guy.
anything to anything.
Oh,
What the fuck is that?
yeah, I know that now. I knew it back then too, but I couldn't formulate it. I couldn't argue. And I just looked at him, tears still swelling. I was like, "What did you listen to anything? Hello, I'm not, I'm not a Nazi." And he was like, literally, "Yeah, you're a Nazi now." And um, he was like a big guy in the poetry slam community, and I don't know how the where are you stated? Where are you?
I'm
In
in
which country?
Amsterdam now.
Okay, in Amsterdam.
Oh,
But
yeah, Netherlands.
it might be similar in Amsterdam, but I don't know how it is internationally generally. But usually poetry slam is very leftist, very woke,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how it
every
usually is.
poem is about having whatever genitals. I don't know, but it's you cannot compare anything to the Holocaust, or you're officially a Nazi there. So logic is not to be found, and yeah, he kind of we wrote about that via WhatsApp the following days because I drove home back to my apartment instead of staying with him. I think that was pretty much how those days played out. And I ordered a book like pretty much immediately before I even went to bed. And that was Our Treatment of Animals in the Holocaust by Charles Patterson. I don't know if you know it.
I don't know it now.
I strongly recommend this. You can find it in every single one of my YouTube descriptions in German and English. In German, it's not easy to buy it, but in English it is. Our Treatment of Animals in the Holocaust, Eternal Treblinka by Charles
Oh,
Patterson. It is,
I
yeah?
ordered it. I haven't
Ah,
started reading it. I've been lazy, but I have it right here. Yeah. So,
I highly
but
recommend it. So the second half, it's more like interviews. That part could have been taken out, especially because he quotes a couple of vegetarians, and I think it's a shit ending to an amazing book, which pretty much brought me into contact with speciesism the first time and the parallels that are very valid and very true, not only from a state of mentality from society, but also from a technological perspective of how the animals were dehumanized and how they were treated as property, or at least as slaves, as lesser than, the numbers that they were given, the deportation to the concentration camps, to the murder facilities, fuck, even the gas chambers, the tattoos. I mean, where do you start, where do you end? And especially this whole, but they're just Jews, they're just minorities, they're lesser than, they're just animals. I come from a family, we had this past, this Jewish part of our family. My grandmother told me about it every now and again. She wanted to have me Christianized as a child. I don't
get to be
baptized.
Christian. Yeah, baptized.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the word.
yeah, because she wanted me to be Christian because she was so afraid that if something changes in the politics of Austria, that people would find out that we have Jewish inheritance and Jewish genes or whatever. So yeah, she definitely wanted me to be baptized as a Christian, and because that was something that was, of course, very hurtful to her and the past there. So it's not like I don't understand where the emotional aspect of it comes from, and I wouldn't even have had to live through it to understand how bad it
Yeah.
is. That's always what I tell people. I don't have to have a heart attack. I don't have to have every single disease that I used to treat patients with. Exactly that book. Get it? Um, to
I'm showing
understand
it to the chat
that
also.
they feel like shit and that they shouldn't hurt. And yeah, I read that book as soon as it came the next day, and I read it in a night, and I sat there teary-eyed. And I also ordered Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, and especially I will never forget the first pages where he makes that exact comparison to female rights in the letter that he responds to, because there was this guy who made a point against female rights as persons because the woman criticizing it being exclusive for men, she made the comparison that females feel exactly the same way as men, and that is the reason why they should deserve rights. And he mocks her letter, saying that this logic would logically have to apply to animals too, and that then animals would also have to be given rights. And he mocks that because it's so absurd to
Wow.
him that animals would be getting. And when I read that, I was like, this is a fucking amazing intro into the whole book. And it definitely laid the foundation to the kind of intersectional activist that I am now. And I think the word intersectional has also been very much tainted. But being vegan has to mean that you're intersectional in the way that you are confident in opening your logic to other kinds of discrimination. And yeah, that racism is speciesism. Speciesism is racism to animals. That word speciesism I found in the book Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. And when I read that, when I binged these books in the next 2-3 days, I knew I was a vegan now, and I would never go and make an exception anymore. And I was at my first activism event 3 days later at the 24th of December on Christmas, 2020 or 19. I don't remember. So yeah, it's 4 years ago that I became a vegan, and I was plant-based-ish with exceptions since I was 16, 17. And I have changed everything in my life to make up to what I did the animals before that, and to get people to awaken to this harsh reality and fight on my side.
So how long were you actually vegan, from being vegan to starting activism?
2 days.
2 days.
Three.
Oh, okay. So when you said 3 days, you literally meant that. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I was a bit
yeah.
confused. Okay, okay, okay.
Because
Wow,
it was
that's
right before Christmas that this whole event happened. My boyfriend and
okay,
I,
okay,
we
okay,
pretty
okay.
much broke up over this comparison, and the WhatsApp chats they went on with, "You're like Hitler. You're comparing. You can't compare this." And then there's this very popular, or at least known, animal vegan guy who wrote vegan cookbooks in Austria. He's called Attila Hildmann, and for a couple years he was like the most famous vegan in Austria. And he also brought veganism this youthful touch. So he laid the foundation for my work to be. And he kind of went gaga a bit. So he suddenly did very weird conspiracy stuff through Corona. And I'm not even talking like asking if the vaccine is appropriate or not. It went like, I think he was like, it's the Jews' fault, and the authorities are a bank. This kind of cuckoo. The one step further than whatever I could say. Okay, maybe he's just a skeptic of the system, but yeah, he fell from graces. And my boyfriend said I'm just like him, because he's also not left wing. Like, I never positioned myself like publicly. I just said that I'm not clear left wing and I'm not clear right wing. But usually the vegan activists, I would say they sway rather on the left wing side. And to
I mean, I'm a
him and the whole,
centrist, so
yeah, it's probably the healthiest choice, I guess.
yeah.
And so my boyfriend and his poetry slam bubble back then, they were like, everything that's not radical left is Nazi. So since Attila Hildmann was Nazi in his eyes, and I made a Holocaust comparison, comparing parallels and the atrocities that we should definitely not support, that logically makes me a Nazi in his brain, which is something that I just want to shake people for.
No, I
And
agree. I get that. I get that. That's an interesting story, and I actually have a lot of commonalities with how I became vegan. I also started for health reasons when I started, and I also actually have said that a couple of times, that I want to be sexy when I'm naked. I agree with that one, actually. So
but did you make it? Did you make it though?
I think I look pretty good naked. Yeah, like
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Congratulations.
Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror naked, and I'm like,
Yes.
made it.
Great.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, because I don't think you mentioned that, like, which definition of veganism do you subscribe to? Is it uh, like lowering animal harm, or like suffering, or is it against animal exploitation, or like, I feel like everybody kind of has a different understanding of it, slightly different, obviously, about the animals, but like which one is specifically?
I think the only one which makes sense when you try to logically engage in this debate is the logical extension of human rights must form animal rights. So I learned a lot from Vegan Gains, and I adhere to his position on that, which I think he still puts very much more eloquently than I do. Violence needs a justification, and animal rights are the logical extension of human rights. I see myself as a threshold deontologist. So, yes, there is a situation where I would gut you and steal all your organs to make one person or a million person healthier. But I think it is a huge, like, it's a very, 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 very specific scenario. And I would have to look at everything until I get to harm an innocent person. So, it's
I mean,
difficult to say which point I would think it's okay to use somebody's body for the greater good.
yeah, I mean, I'm a threshold deontologist as well, but my threshold is guiltiness. If somebody's not guilty, then they they should never ever.
I think
And by
guiltiness is difficult sometimes because
it's guiltiness it's difficult to measure, yeah, but
yeah, because Vegan Gains, I think, puts it too simple sometimes, and that's definitely something that I also have to think about still on how I want these questions to be answered. But he says that, for example, when it comes to crop deaths or defending your food, the the perpetrator of your apple, like the bee or whatever, or even a hamster, they're guilty. And I don't see
I don't
I
think
don't
they
see
are.
like, yeah, but that's exactly what I say. He says it's fine, and I wouldn't say that that's the reason. I think it's is it bad luck in a situation? I think if we both sit on an island and there's nothing to eat other than your body or my body, respectively, that I do have a justification for killing you, but I don't think that it would be right to kill and eat you. So I think
Exactly.
the moment that I hurt you, to even for my survival, to take your body directly, that is a rights violation. But there are scenarios where I think, okay, what if I want to harvest an apple, but you also want to harvest the apple? Then I can stab and kill you to
You
eat the
mean like
apple.
sharing resources? Yeah.
But so it's, I cannot hold it down to only guilt. I think it's intention that plays a lot into the role of how I would
I
value a
agree.
certain action. And we definitely have to also think of things that come from non-intentional harm. But I think we can only find the best solution for even these questions that already arise when a world accepts animal rights as they do human rights as a foundation. So we should think of that. We should talk about that like we do right now. But it starts with making everyone vegan and aware that there is a problem in the suffering of sentient beings.
I completely agree. Like there's obviously like a lot of cases, or I want to call them edge cases, where you can justify doing harm or violating somebody's rights or whatever other cases there are, and you can try to explore morality in those situations and be like, well, is it moral? I don't know if it's moral. Is it justified? I don't know. Like for me personally, I have very much difficulty differentiating. Well, not differentiating because I understand the difference, but rather um, r- like defining the difference between is it moral or is it justified, right? Because it's very difficult for me to define the difference between these two. Like okay, but if it's justified, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's moral in that situation? But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
like we both agree that in certain situations it is what it is. And it's interesting you subscribe more to the idea of rights. I agree with that. Like I agree that there's fundamental rights that all animals should have. But I think I subscribe personally. Well, I currently I think the most biggest issue is the exploitation of animals, and I think animals should not be exploited. So I'm against exploitation of animals. But yeah, in that sense, I'm also against exploitation of humans, of course, right? So
I don't
it's
like the word
it's
exploitation because I don't even want to say in a capitalistic system, but in any system, even in a relationship, where does exploitation start? How does consent play into it? What if there's an alternative
Yeah,
where they
without
would
consent.
alternatively be more exploited? Does that make it just to exploit a little? So I don't like the word
I see what you
exploitation.
mean.
If you're here, you have to pay a fucking rent. You never chose to be here. Does that make you being exploited for the whole system? I think the word exploitation doesn't work because it always leads to people saying, "But we're also exploited. What about the sweatshops?" It's too much.
I agree. But like also rights, right? Do rights encompass consent? That's what I'm curious, because like I would say you could find you could argue that there is a case when animals are given rights, but they are also used against their consent, or what somebody may say, well, we got consent or something, right? Like you mentioned vegan gains, right? Like riding horses, and I don't he mentions consent training. I don't think that's consent, but I don't want to talk about vegan gains too much. But like
Mm.
my point is that like consent, getting consent from an animal because we can't communicate with them properly, is just us interpreting what consent could possibly be, right? So in
Like I
that sense,
said, it's an expansion of human rights. So you could bring up the same examples when it comes to a child, and
fair.
you usually say the child doesn't want to go to the doctor, they don't want to be vaccinated, they'd rather play video games and eat chips all day. Now, is it against the child's consent to give it a vegetable and to get it vaccinated? In that moment, probably yes, but you're acting in the best wish, like I don't know how to say it in English, im mutmaßlichen Willen, in the wish of the child's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
proper, like you're caregiver, and you have to be a caregiver of
yeah.
animals too. And if there is a situation, and I never heard that before talking to vegan gains, where consent training and sitting on a horse to get it to move if it would otherwise not move is fair and in the will of the animal, in its last will, as you have to say, not probably not in that moment, but overall, then I would apply that to animals just in the same way as I would do to humans and
I
other.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I would apply the same logic, right? Like
Mm.
it's an anti-speciesist approach at the end of the day, right? Like if you wouldn't do it to a human, why would you do it to an animal? I agree with that. I guess it's just like overall how kind of how you describe it more, but like yeah, it's I think
Mm.
in the particularities we agree on all of it except for I don't know, maybe the calling predators thing we disagree, because I saw your chat with vegan gains,
Why
but I don't
why
want
do
to.
you disagree? You don't
we
want to
can we
know,
can
you
get
have to. Sorry, you know who you
we can get
invite.
into that. We can get into that a bit later, and I can explain exactly my position. I wanted to have a
Mhm.
conversation with somebody about it and explain my position, but
Mhm.
I think it okay, fuck it. Let's if I'm gonna get into this right now, let's get into this right now. But like let's make it time box, because I know this subject can spiral out of control a lot, right? So my whole point is, like you said, that if an animal attacks a human being, you would stop the animal, kill, and save the human being, correct?
It depends on the human being.
Yeah, well, let's say an innocent human being. I don't know what to call it, a vegan person.
An innocent vegan activist human being, yeah, I would probably
Yeah,
save the human. Yeah.
yeah. Well, what would you do in the case? I personally think that's already inherently a speciesist, and I'll explain why. But what would you do in a case when a human child has a rabbit in their hand? They're going towards the balcony, and then they don't know any better, but they just want to drop the rabbit, and because they want to see what happens. Would you kill the child to save the rabbit?
Well, it's depends on the intention of the child. I don't think that a child can actually think of the consequences here.
Yeah, but neither can a
So,
carnivorous animal, right? A carnivorous animal doesn't necessarily
but
care
it's
about the
like it's
consequences
like
of how the
a
other feels.
But he does it again and again and again, and there's an ill intention. The child I can
Yeah,
teach to
that's
not throw a rabbit off the roof. So it's like a decision of who of two innocents would I save in a situation. And I don't believe
exactly.
that the cat, but in the wild, it's not two innocents. It's an ill intention that will repeat, and there is no way of stopping that. I think you can
But
make
why
a
would you call
better
it
example
ill
for your
intent?
point.
Why would you
because
call it
the
ill intent? That's the problem, right? Because the way I see it,
if a
carnivorous
child, like
animals.
if a grown human, let's take a grown human who realizes what will happen with the bunny if he throws it off, then I would throw the human off and save the bunny. Yeah, that's not what I would do because of pragmatical
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
consequences in this species' world and law, but that's what you should do. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so okay, well, the way I see it, right, like in my, like, I guess that's the value that we that we don't share, and that I seem to have disagreed also when I had this conversation, was that I personally believe when there's two innocent people fighting, or two innocent people, one of them is going to die, both of them being innocent. I think me intervening would not be fair towards any of them. That's just my opinion, regardless of the situation. Like, it wouldn't be moral for me to intervene in the situation. So that's, yeah.
But they're not, like, one of them, even if he is innocent in that situation, he will do it again and again and again and cause great suffering, and it will not stop in his name. So we had the example before where you and I sat on an island, and I said at some point I would probably be so hungry that I would kill and eat you, and you said that that would be wrong, right? I would lose my rights in that situation.
I don't know, for,
You
like,
said that.
if you kill.
You're
Yeah, yeah,
changing
like,
position.
I'm not changing my position. I said, I said I don't know if it's moral or not. We said it's justifiable, right? Like, that's what we said,
Well,
right?
it's. I think I worded it wrong. I think the word justifiable and moral need to be used synonymously. So let's say it's understandable and relatable, and I would do it because I'd rather do it than die, because I would probably be egoistical in that situation. Morally, I think me abusing with the intention of murdering you and your body to survive, I think is wrong, even though I would understand it. But I
Even if you're
think,
acting on instinct and you're not a moral agent, right? Even if you don't know what you're doing, even if you don't
yes,
even realize that what you're doing.
it's irrelevant as a consequence to you, right?
Um, it is
So, okay,
irrelevant
look,
as a consequence to me, but
if it's
like,
a one-on-one, depending on the situation with humans, especially you and me, then I could say, okay, maybe it's moral, but it's not a one-on-one. It's something that will repeat every single day, or
I
at
know
least
that.
like
That's
every week. So I think there is a threshold there, definitely, no matter if it's a moral agent or not. And at some point, if we can prevent it, if we look, the whole discussion doesn't mean, if you come to the point where you say you need to call carnivores, that doesn't mean that you have to go right now and interfere every single time that this happens, because
I
obviously
agree.
it's just a very abstract thing that would probably shake
Exactly.
ecosystems right now. So vegans, even vegans, infighting about this topic and then telling me that I'm not a vegan, I would kill a lion, she wants to kill all lions, they are very bad faith when it comes to this whole topic that is very, very dry, very abstract. We're not there yet as a human species. We should be there yet. We should even be discussing things like ephilism and turning off all suffering as a whole. Um, but but if you had the choice here and now, I give you the button to hit the button to take out all carnivores of the planet without having ecological damage, but without causing these rights violations, this harsh suffering, would you push the button?
I guess so. Yeah, that I guess so. That's the thing. I agree. I agree. So with this argument, I have a very much I have some issues with it, largely practicability, which you also touched upon, right? And I also do have some moral issues with us just going out there and killing them. But if there's a button, if it's as simple as a button where there's no suffering, where they just instantly disappear, and they, like it's a different case, right? But like, anyway, I
But
don't
even
want.
if they would suffer a bit or much in that situation, it would be a lot less than they would cause forever and ever and ever more. So even if it would mean gassing all carnivorous animals that are here right now, theoretically speaking, if it happened once and then never again for all the other animals, which is equivalent to that gassing just every single day for those innocents who are being attacked, whose bodies are being abused for someone else, then we should still hit the button, even if it makes suffering. Under the line, it would probably cause less suffering, and especially it will cause less of these direct rights violations.
But then what is the difference? Like okay, I'll just go here, but then I really want to discuss something else, because I've been discussing this argument already a couple of times. So, but because I don't see the difference between then any other person, because living involves some form of dying one way or another, right? So then what is the difference between me buying a product that, as you said, there creates some crop deaths and kills somebody, and kills a lot of people, right? Because every time I buy it, it kills a lot of people, it kills a lot of individuals. What is the difference between that and a carnivorous
Yeah, you would have to
animal?
formulate the argument that that kills more than not doing it, because if you have crops on a field where there would otherwise be rainforest, you would probably have more death and suffering, especially in the long run, on those fields than you would have with the crop field being there and you having those deaths through harvesting or through pesticides even. So you're not leading to more suffering by buying these products. More humanity on the planet probably means less wildlife and leads to less of these rights violations. So no, I don't see it as equivalent.
Yeah, I see your point of view, but like, do you have any way of measuring that would happen, right? It's like saying, let's say you take a,
No, I
I don't
don't.
know.
This is not. This is why I don't do activism. For we need to do
Exactly.
the culling of the carnivores right now. I don't. But if there is a possibility to, then nobody should rip upon the guts of someone else if we can feed them
I
otherwise.
agree.
And
I
so
agree.
that's the whole topic for me on this. And if you would save a human in that situation, then why not a lion? Yeah, why
I
not the gazelle?
So my point is, like, obviously, if you could reduce suffering, you should reduce suffering, right? Number one. Number two, obviously, if you could theoretically reduce wildlife suffering, you should. But like, my whole point about the argument was that it's impracticable and we
Yeah,
shouldn't be promoting it right now. That was my whole point.
yeah.
And I wanted to have a conversation about it because I wanted to understand it, explore my values and explore my views on it, right? Because I need to understand, obviously, I was born in a world where I've been influenced by speciesist values, right? I want to remove that and try to take this argument apart and try to see it from a different perspective. That's all it is. But
No, that's
I
totally valid, and I do think that that topic is a bit valid because it comes up with vegans who have pet snakes or who even go and rescue a pet snake, and they have to be fed, for example, live mouse or cats who have to be fed meat, or they don't. There's vegan cat food, but for snakes, for example, I wouldn't know an alternative. I think Vegan Gains mentioned that there's a thought of filtering vegan cat food into the snake, but whatever, let's say there isn't. So even a vegan might come up and say, yeah, it's the nature, I have to keep this going. And then you could like ask them, would you give it also a human baby? Would you give it a little puppy every day to eat? And
completely agree. Yeah, you need to ask
that's
yourself that.
but that's the basis of the whole wild animal suffering question that's being opened up there. So you should be able to formulate exactly those principles, even if they're impractical, in order to make practical advice on how we should or should not keep pets at home and how they should be fed and what solutions need to be found. And we cannot find these solutions or even ask these questions if we don't evaluate the whole ethical question here.
Like, listen, I understand this problem. I completely agree that with the problem, I just don't agree with the solution. I just don't think the solution is to call all carnivorous predator species is a good solution, or
I don't
odd
even think that that
carnivorous.
is Vegan Gain's position. He is not for just do it no matter the consequence. I think, and we have him in the chat here, Richard, if you would have the possibility to hit the button of killing all carnivores right now, if that would cause a whole ecological breakdown, I do not think, but maybe I am wrong on his opinion. I
It's
don't
not. I
think that
don't
he
think
would
it's positive. No, but I think it.
push the button.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't. I want to get away from the subject because
Yeah,
it's
but
pretty clear. Like
yeah, we
I
can
don't.
finish it with that now. So vegan gains wouldn't push
Yeah.
the button if it caused immense suffering and consequences that we wouldn't even be able to calculate. The whole wild animal suffering debate, and I can say it once and for all skeptical vegans listening at this point, it's a very theoretical debate, a one that you can have, that should be treated in good faith, not in bad faith. And no, it doesn't mean that we are in favor of shooting all lions always. So yeah,
Yes,
that's
and
all
I
there is
also
to say
think
to that.
like that. Yeah, my only problem with this, and when I had a conversation with Vegan Gains, is that he said, "Well, we should kill the carnivores that don't destabilize while not
Yeah,
destabilizing the ecosystem, right?"
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's one way of putting it, but I don't know if this solves the issue, right? This doesn't really solve the issue, and I know you are aware about the message that we send as vegans, and it's important that we as vegans probably don't promote the idea that we should be killing other animals, especially given in a context where most humans on earth do not really understand this perspective of ending suffering, even wildlife suffering, but rather
Yep.
they just see us as us promoting, oh, we should kill one animal. No, we're not promoting this. Like, not that's not what we're saying, right?
But look, there's always the danger that somebody misinterprets you, even though you say totally logical things. Like you could say you should stop saying the Holocaust world because people will think that you want to make Nazi Germany live up again. There's literally people telling me exactly that. Does that stop me from making logical comparisons and opening my arguments to
It
these kinds of
doesn't.
logic? It shouldn't stop me from that. People tell you that you shouldn't talk about radical veganism because people will think that you will want to go and, I don't know, Holocaust non-vegans on the spot, or like, just because
Listen,
some person might think XYZ doesn't shouldn't stop you from saying your truth.
no, it doesn't. But my problem with the whole argument is why I wanted to have a conversation with people about it and kind of go through it is that I don't think it's that bulletproof. I don't think it's that logical. Like veganism is bulletproof. It's logical. It's empathetic. It's all of it, right? Like if there is no way around saying that veganism doesn't make sense. Veganism makes sense in absolutely all situations, right? There
I
is
wouldn't
no.
even say that it's bulletproof. I would never say that I will never go back to eating meat, because if there's a good argument, and there probably always is something that you didn't think of, you shouldn't go. I think it's no good idea to
I
walk
mean,
around.
obviously, of course, like I personally don't think I would ever go to that, obviously, right? Like that's just my opinion. I don't like when I say it's bulletproof, and I mean, obviously there's no 100%. I'm not talking about 100% certainty here, right?
Okay.
We're talking about a large amount of certainty but with this argument, there's not such a large amount of certainty, if you ask me, or at least not from my perspective, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's why
just
we don't promote it, and that's what we should, I mean, mention. That's something that we do, and only I think some bad faith vegans actually pick it up that way. But it's yeah, it's very logically consistent though. Yeah.
okay. Let's talk about activism because I want to talk about activism, and I mean, everybody has seen your type of activism, and I'm curious, like, how does an activism day or session start with you? Just to go a little bit through it, because I'm curious about that, and I'm also curious about what is it that you would consider a good day of activism, a good session of activism?
Oh, those
Like,
are
what
so
makes
cute
it?
questions. I like that a lot. I actually don't think that everybody has seen my activism in English. I have had quite some success in reaching a lot of people in German. Um, but I feel like a baby activist in English right now, especially since I have difficulty phrasing things sometimes. Um, but what a good day looks like. So I usually do street activism only 2 to 3 times a week. And I think for me at the moment, that is nearly a bit too little, but it has something to do with logistics. And you shouldn't be doing, in my opinion, you shouldn't be doing street activism every single day unless you have people who are cutting up your stuff in a way that you know will reach a lot of people, and getting a team on that. But I'm not yet confident in outsourcing everything that I put online. Um, So yeah, usually it's we go to other towns. I don't usually do a lot of activism stuff where I live because I don't want people to know my whereabouts too much, and it's a very aggressive city in Germany. So, for example, on Friday, will I have a TV interview, and I will be going there. I will be doing my activism, and then the whole will be doing a debate on veganism with a very right wing guy who will probably be defending holocausting animals, and then I will spend the weekend in Vienna probably, where my activist day usually looks like waking up in some Airbnb, then getting dressed as a cow or with my militant vegan merch, and then just drawing on some kind of cardboard paper and gluing a bloody animal picture and writing something that gets all people annoyed, like if you believe in animal rights you have to be vegan, or if you wouldn't gas humans you shouldn't gas pigs, or non-vegans are animal enslavers. And then we walked through town, usually my boyfriend and I, and people usually, like most conversations now, is people recognizing me, which has formed my activism into passivism, which has its benefits and its downsides. So it's much more easier to get conversations, but the conversations are a lot more repetitive since the kids that recognize me are it's harsh to say, but they are not very original. They like many of the youth is very copy pasty. I don't know if that's just a thing in this generation, but I guess every generation is like that. And having interesting outreach that you can actually put in a video, um, it's more difficult with this kind of conversation.
So just
Yeah,
to be clear, what you're saying, because that was one of my questions also that I had. Like, when you do activism, are you actively? I asked Jack Higgs the same thing, and is it that you're trying to look for the conversations that are more interesting or would gather more traction online, or is it that you look like, do you even look, or do you wait for them to come? That's kind of why I asked you to describe the whole
yeah.
session, because I'm
So
curious to know.
my most of my activism now is just walking through town and annoying people until they turn around and want to debate. But it's 50-50 with anonymous of the voiceless kind of activism, where I don't know if you're familiar with it, but most
I know
people
it,
here
Avery. Yeah.
probably are. Anonymous for the voiceless shows slaughterhouse footage, international standard on screens, and we talk to people who actively look at the screens with emotions in their face for more than 5 seconds. So then you can approach these people, ask them, hey, how do you feel when you see this? How are you responsible for this? Do you think it's necessary that we do this? And tell them about veganism. So that is something that I did for the first 2 years. I did mostly Anonymous for the Voiceless activism, and I did my fair bit of disruptive activism, dabbling in all kinds of creative endeavors, poetry slam, music videos, science slam, TV debates, provocative naked actions. And now it's still a mumble jumble of hey, what's up this week? Like I said, TV interview on Friday, then a weekend of probably lingerie activism in Vienna, yes, in Vienna, and street debating on Sunday, I guess. And then on Monday there is other activism like Anonymous for the Voices again. So yeah, that's what I never really know what I do, but I try to look for interesting things. I try to the best videos, and it's really it's how you reach people is online. So even if I make someone go vegan on a spot, congratulations me, yay me. If it's the most boring conversation, I might not even putting online because it's boring. Like smart people, good conversations, boring content. I do that sometimes, but mostly I want the meat, I want the nitty gritty, I want the idiots putting burgers in my face. I think the biggest haters are the best activists.
Oh, because then people don't want to relate to them, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it goes viral, and um as long as your conversation with them and how you bring it back on the topic is confident, solid, and ethically consistent, then that really makes people see who is on the right side here. I
But
think I yeah.
how much do you think matters from the conversation? How much do you think that the logic of the conversation, or the, as you say, the logically consistency of the conversation, how well spoken you are matters versus how empathetic you are, right? Because like I'm curious, like if you have a logically inconsistent meat eater who is obviously contradicting themselves or whatever, but they come off as a nice person and you come off as you disturbing them or you being in their face, do you think that's good,
Mm.
better or worse? Like I honestly don't know, like I'm asking this.
Yeah, we don't really have evidence for that, do we, on the long run?
Yeah.
But I do have people telling me about their how I became vegan now stories. And over the last 4 years, and I pretty much started my online activism after 3 months because not putting stuff online that you do is always stupid. Um, so I have many people coming up to me now who kind of grew out of their teenager years while I did activism, which is scary growing old. And they say at the beginning we laughed about you and my whole class laughed about you. Now most of us are vegan and I'm so sorry. I actually look, I made this video mocking you. I sent these videos into these WhatsApp groups and we had a great big laugh. You made me think about this though. And the more I listened, the more you came into my feed and the stupid meatheads I saw, the more I realized that you're right. And it was uncomfortable.
Okay.
So look, it's an anecdote. On the other
Yeah.
hand, Everything Ed probably has someone who he cooked a vegan meal to and told some statistics, and they went vegan through that. I personally, obviously, don't believe that that is how you change a generation, that that is how you really get people to understand the urgency on a mass scale. But also for the individual, I think people need harsh awakenings to stick to this and to not become pick me vegans, especially. So I don't believe
What's your
that.
definition of
Yeah.
pick me vegan, by the way? That's
Yeah. So
interesting.
a pick me girl is something a term that went viral a couple years ago on the internet. It was about these women saying, or women generally saying, before I come off as a pygmy girl, I'm not like these other women. I eat steak sometimes and I watch football. I'm not like the other women. I actually make my hair wet when I go underwater and I never wear makeup. Ha 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 ha. I'm like a boys girl. Ha ha. I'm one of the boys. So that's a pygmy woman. And usually everyone probably knows a pygmy woman, and usually she is trying to get higher on the hierarchy of males by putting down stereotypically females to become yet I think it comes from a point of feeling a little confident, especially with your female contacts, that you want to put down females to become more sympathetic with men and to garner their interest because you're so different. You're not like the other girls, kind of ish. And with a pick me vegan, it's the same thing, but of course, on the topic of veganism, it's like a vegan saying, "Yeah, I'm not like the militant vegan. I'm not like Mr. Chip here on YouTube. You can eat meat. I don't care about that. No, I just do it for my health and for sexy nakedness. And no, it's no, I do it for the animals too, but it's not so important." Like that is putting down
I see what you mean.
radical vegans in order to become more favorable to the non-vegans and to not be, if even if you're a vegan without being an activist, you are uncomfortable to the non-vegans around you. So the pick me vegan finds the solution in being a pick me to not fall into the disgrace of their friends and family, even though they for themselves have realized that it is wrong to do, but they aren't courageous enough to actually shine that light of judgment to others.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, that's a good definition. Yeah, I mean it's I guess pick me vegan is basically somebody who accepts non-veganism as a solution, and it should never ever be accepted as one, right? Like we shouldn't accept non-veganism as something that people can just be like, right? Veganism should be a moral imperative. That's what we're saying, right? And
I'm sorry,
pick
I
me
just
vegan.
saw a comment saying that we are utilitarians, which is far from the truth. I think I made that clear, vegan, of course, from the start, that there would be a harsh threshold for me to open up the guts of Mr. Chip here until I give someone else his kidneys. So no, I'm obviously not a clear-cut utilitarian. This is just slander and it's not just, and I don't think that you've been paying attention. And saying that I am not vegan um, is also not fair, because I do believe in animal rights as the logical extension of human rights. So fuck you. And let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, I know Sky. I know why he's saying that. He's saying that because of the killing predators
Yeah,
thing,
I
that they're
was on
pressing
his
the
talk
button.
and he fucking lost the debate to
It
vegan
doesn't.
gains. Like, if you
Let's
took
not.
a sip of alcohol every time Sky dodged vegan gains hypotheticals in his debate, you would be liver dead afterwards. Rewatch it and go shame on you.
Listen. I don't wanna. I
No,
don't
not
wanna
on
go
you, on
in all
him,
fair.
not on him, on
I, I
him.
I understand. I understand. I understand. But like in all fairness, just like I had recently a conversation that turned into a debate with vegan gains, and in all fairness, it's so easy to get lost within hypotheticals. It is very easy to get lost within
It's easy to
hypotheticals
get lost,
if
but
you're
it's
not
it's
used to them.
listen to it, dodging, dodging, dodging. There's a difference between misunderstanding and dodging.
I don't know. I don't think he's dodging, but anyway, like let's
Mm.
again, like I like even with that whole button thing, I have my doubts also, but like I really don't want to get into this whole conversation. That I really, I literally just don't want to get into this whole conversation again, because I feel like the whole reason why I don't like that argument is because it's not just that it's divisive, but it's that you can see it in a lot of ways and make sense of it in a lot of ways. And I have yet to have a conversation with somebody about it who wants to even listen to another way of seeing it.
But we
Like,
did. I think we had a great
yeah, we
chat
did.
about
We did. We
wild
had a
animal
great
suffering.
conversation.
So
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah. We
forget
had a
me
great.
here. That's
No,
not
of course I'm not
just.
gonna forget you. No, no, no.
I
I'm not
thought
gonna
this
forget.
was very civil, and we both made sensible points, and we came to an agreement that it's not practical yet to draw any conclusions into our everyday
It's not.
life of going and murdering lions. So I thought it was fair game here.
It is. It is. It is. It is. It is. I agree with you. It's not. It's not fair. Yeah. It's. I think we disagree on some core values, but otherwise, yeah, we agree on the idea that it's not practical. We shouldn't be promoting it and all that, which I love. So let's do it. Okay. About your activism, right? Because you said that you look, and you obviously have some conflict in your videos. You obviously have your videos get picked up because of the conflict that you have in them. And you say that the people who watch your videos, they watch it once, they watch it twice, they watch it 3 times and 4 times, and eventually they end up agreeing with you because they see that the other side is just so doesn't make sense, right? But do you think that, like, I want to understand this formula, right? Because like if there's a formula where, of course, to make it viral, you have to have some conflict, right? But if you have the conflict and then the people initially, like 80% or 90% of people, because I actually had a conversation with some German people and they dislike you. They disliked you. Like I'll just
Yeah.
tell you right here, right now, right? Because they don't like how you talk to people. That's why they said, right? And then afterwards, I started watching your videos, and I thought, I think you're just direct. I don't think you're necessarily talking to people in any other way other than being direct. So, but apparently some people really dislike that. What can I say about it? Uh, but do you think like there is like some wiggle room for you there? Like, because like for me personally, when I do activism, I do right now the way I do it is I obviously apply my personality to it. I'm a calm person. I try to approach people and I try to discuss it with them in a at their level. I try to come to their level and explain to them veganism and all this stuff, right? But that's just how I do it. But if I was to find out that tomorrow the best way to do it would be to yell at people, go vegan, I would yell at people and tell them to go vegan, right? So my question to you is, what's your take on this? Like, do you do you look more into the different styles of activism? Do you look more into how best to
So
approach people to get them to be
when
vegan, not just the people that you, but also the people watching? Yeah.
Yeah, there is multiple perspectives that you can have on this question. If you gave me a chance if you told me, Raffaela, all animals will be liberated if you turn this random person on the street vegan within the year, then I would speak to them and approach them way differently than if I just had to make the best impact for veganism that I believe leads to the best consequences on society. Uh, Definitely. So I like I said, my activism, if I do it for content, if I film it, is very much different
I
than how I
expect
would
that. Yeah.
start with someone who will be sharing more time with me. Especially the sharing more time with me. I wouldn't take it down a notch from the urgency, but I would bring it to them differently. I would watch the whole of Dominion with them. I would actually take them by the hand and go shopping with them and bring them. I would bring them to the activism. I would introduce them to more vegans, because the more vegans that they know, the more different types of vegans they know, the rather they would be able to identify with that and to not feel put down by their environment if they take that choice. It's a coming out, and it can be very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. So I would try to make that the most comfortable for them that it can be, and I would try to make it more and more and more uncomfortable for them to not be vegan. And that is something that, like I said, if it's for one individual, I would have the capacity and the time to do it for one specific individual.
Yeah.
But when I go out and film and do content and do outreach for that, then my approach is, I want to say the truth that I logically believe in, that I can logically explain, for what is happening to animals right now. And oh, sorry, is my microphone fucked now? It sounds
No, no, no.
weird.
We can hear you
Oh, okay.
nicely.
Um, and I want to get viral videos that don't only come across as screamy, screamy, screamy. Screamy, screamy, screamy is not enough. If you just want hits and clicks, and you have a very loving conversation about it being the best for nature and it being so great for your health, then you could probably also garner millions of views as a plant-based chef. That probably will take off quicker, because people use social media as a search engine more than they say, hey, I want to have a vegan screaming at me right now. But I don't think that it will leave the traces that we need right now. I think I want to create the kind of content that people listen to, that it's bingeable, that people are fucking annoyed by. They have to be so fucking annoyed, um, and have it nagging, that they want to share it with a friend and say, because if something is just insane, then you don't necessarily want to share it, because there's nothing that speaks to you emotionally.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
If you watch a terrible movie that affects you because you had a trauma in your childhood, you want to show it to someone and talk about it. And I think I want to traumatize on an emotional level somehow to leave the traces, with the kind of content that I make. And I think that this is also something that we should generally leverage for the kind of content that we create.
That's a very interesting point, right? So what you're saying is that you'd rather have a horizontal approach where you're annoying a lot of people, but at least you're getting your foot in the door with them about veganism, rather than one person or two people seeing your video, or less people seeing your videos, but they would maybe understand more or get closer to veganism.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. I do think that I explain in my videos, and I get them close
You
to
do, you do,
veganism.
you
I
do,
don't.
you do, you do, you do, you do, you do. But like what you said is that you want people to get annoyed and to share it, right? That's what you said,
Yeah,
right? So
definitely, definitely. And
I
every video in the caption and also on the video, I link to Dominion. So that's for further, that there aren't left like in the dark with just a single video. Especially my English content is little. I think you need pressure, 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 and that's what made veganism online and the outreach in Germany successful, is that people saw it every single day. It's like having a vegan in front of your doorstep explaining veganism to you every day. If it's just once, you can easily ignore him. If you see it and for a while I was on every single For You page, then you will not, it will not be as easily to ignore.
yeah, I see what you mean. But like even if you do see it and you have a negative feeling for it, do you think that's still a win? Or
Yeah, as long, so I there's an artist I liked. He's called Gottfried Hellwein, and he says the worst thing that he can do with a piece of art is have people look at it and never want to look at it again. Um, in the sense
makes
of, if
sense.
it leaves no emotion, if it leaves them blank, if they can just pass it in a hall. If like the pass it in a hall is a nice metaphor, because pretty much social media is a hall of, it's a gallery. Everybody's posting their images, their videos, and the worst thing that a video can have is it not leaving a trace of emotion, of something that nags. And I think that's, like I said, what gets people to go vegan on the long run. It's that sleeper effect, that it nags and nags and nags.
Do you think in this whole, from getting the world vegan to, from now to getting the world vegan, do you think there's because the way, from what I hear, is what you're doing is very important work. But for example, my activism style is totally different. I sit with people, I try to explain them in detail, because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand some of the arguments that we make as vegans, because we've already been through them. We kind of know the logical movement from one argument to the other, but they don't necessarily do know that. So sometimes I sit with them and I try to explain that to them, right? But the way I see it, you actually have, your role is more like, obviously getting people as closer to veganism as possible. Everybody wants that, right? Like at the end of the day. But I think like when you say this, you're basically saying that what I want is non-vegans to know more and more about veganism, to hear it more and more and more. And do you think like there should be in activism more roles, whereas you, for example, get people more and more aware of activism, more and more knowledge, and other people such as Earthling Ed would get them more knowledgeable about activism, because he has an amazing way of explaining everything, right? I'm not saying that you don't do that. Of course you do that, right? That's not what I'm implying. But what I'm saying is that obviously some people have better skill sets for like this part, and other people have better skill sets for this part, right? So I'm curious, like, do you think maybe we should assign roles in this whole vegan movement, where like vegan activist movement, where we are saying, well, you should be this type, you should be this type, and maybe we need more of this or more of that to get it the fastest way possible to a vegan world?
So there's a couple ways that I would like to answer this. In an ideal world, let's say we had all gazillion money and we would be like non-human spiritual beings, and we could assign roles to little humans, like in a board game, that make the world vegan faster. Like if we're sitting
Yeah,
on a cloud as gods together, that's a cute question. Yeah, I would definitely assign roles. I think it's important that we don't all do the same thing. Um,
agree.
and that people, I think, especially if you have like one parent, for example, who tells you that you shouldn't eat the ice cream, and she smacks your hands when you grab the ice cream, and then you cry and you don't really understand. But then you have your other parent who, because you cry so much and you don't understand, who explains it to you again, but they both have the same message but in a different way. Then it will be much easier, gullible for you to understand the underlying message. And I believe it's similar when it comes to veganism. So I've had many people,
Good point.
I've had some people write me stuff like, I didn't like you at the beginning. I still don't fucking like you. I don't agree with your way of activism, but fuck you. I'm vegan now because of you. I read up upon this and I stumbled upon this other vegan cooking, whatever. And he also talked about that. And then I realized that that was also your message, but fuck you. You shouldn't be doing it like that. And we're like, obviously I should, but it's an, I see it as these wheels that grind together. How do you call it in English?
Like
The
cogwheels.
machinery. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
How do you call it?
cogwheels.
Cogwheel. Cogwheels. Okay. Yeah.
Cog, like
Oh, cog.
the
Okay,
cogwheels.
cog.
Yeah.
Of course, cog wheels. Yeah. And we do need. So I'm glad that there are nutritionists who wrote books and who bring out public stuff. Who probably don't, like. There are people who are antisocial. They can't go on the street and film debates for juveniles to share, but they can go and study stuff and write books about that. I would fucking hate staying and researching papers all day long. I did that once for my doctor thing, and I never want to do it again in my life. So we don't, to answer it from a second perspective, I don't even have to assign it as a god creature. I don't have to look at someone and tell him, no, we already have XYZ. You have to do something that completely goes against your character. Because let's be honest, there are people who are it's easier for them to be more extroverted, to go and rush somewhere in than it is. It doesn't mean that it's easy for them, but it might be easier for someone like that than for someone who's completely on the opposite spectrum of openness about these situations. And it's probably also easier for a Brazil person to do activism in Brazil than it is for me. So you can even relate it to that kind of situation. We need
I
different
see it
people
with
doing different
language.
stuff. And we need vegan doctors, we need vegan nurses, we need vegan engineers, we need people breaking stereotypes, even if they don't do activism. We need vegan strongmen like you. So
And my next question is, because I agree with you, we do need all that. My next question is, like, say, I also saw somebody in the chat mentioning that they wouldn't be vegan if they wouldn't see you, and that kind of prompted me the question also. Like, do you think that obviously some people I think are inclined towards changing and are easier to change and to go vegan than others, right? Like, if you say you take one person, do you think it matters who they meet first or who they meet second, or do you think that from their point where they're at to going vegan, do you think it matters who they see, what they see, or in what order? Like, if you could get some people to just watch some videos about veganism, and you know that for a fact that one will not turn them vegan for sure, like one video will not turn them vegan directly, like how would you optimize the least amount of videos, the least amount of, you see what I mean? Like, I'm
okay, yeah,
curious
we're
also about that.
talking from a marketing perspective, we're talking about funneling here now, I think.
Okay.
That's an interesting question too. So in marketing, you want to get someone to buy a shoe, for example. You have a
Yeah,
page where you sell shoes, and the question always is, how do you get someone who might not even be interested in having a new pair of shoes yet to buy your shoe?
exactly.
So for marketing perspectives, there could either be the question of making it a cold call, like getting someone who doesn't even have feet to buy a shoe, and someone who is looking for a shoe to buy your shoe. Those are two different questions, I think, and you could also relate it to veganism as being two different questions here. So let's go for the easier example one. Someone who is already open for discrimination and who is on the whole topic, who is very vocal, maybe even about racism. I would. It's easier to funnel these people. I would make them watch Gary Yourofsky's speech and Dominion. And if they're already an activist, like I said, if somebody who is already interested in topics, who is already been labeled, that's what you would call it in marketing terms, I think, as having a niche interest, then you could build it from their niche interest. If they're a feminist, then you could explain them the dairy industry and show them dairy is scary first, and then also like Gary Yourofsky, his speech is very intersectional on that. Um, you could definitely start with that, but just showing them Dominion often I think is not enough, because Dominion in itself, it doesn't, I think, give the direct responsibility to the person, and especially just leaving it to themselves. Usually people stop after 10 minutes. It's terrible pictures. Nobody wants to sit through 1.5 hours of that. So I made a video on an3x.org. You can also find Earthlings and Dominion on that page, an3x.org, without having the 18 plus barrier. And it's called Why Vegan? And in 8 minutes, it summarizes the terrible pictures, and I tried to phrase it as logical as possible. I did make some mistakes, like saying dogs and cats can be vegan. No, they can be fed a plant-based diets, and I still have to yet correct these mistakes. It's a lot of work, and I will do it. But I would probably make them watch this short video if they only have a short time, and if they have longer time, it really depends on the person. Like I said, Gary Yourofsky's speech and Dominion, I think, are must-watches. I would obviously steer clear from things like Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. If they are religious-y, maybe Christspiracy. But I think religion is for dumb people, so you should probably also talk to them about religion and it not making any sense. So I don't usually like to stick on the religious frame, even
Depends
though
on
I
the
thought it was
religion,
an
I would say.
Sorry?
Depends on the religion, I would say.
Mm,
Maybe there's
no.
religions. I'm not religious. I'm atheist, by the way. But like maybe
Uh,
there's religions out there that kind of make sense. I don't know. Who am I to judge?
if it would make sense, then it wouldn't just be a religion, right?
I don't know. I mean, there's there's answers to things which we don't really know yet, and which we can't really explain yet.
Yeah,
So
but then it's the most stupid thing, because you can't explain something, to believe that a god made it. So that's why I said it's an easy way out for not trying to find, for not being as honest to say as we don't fucking know. We don't know. And just believing in something because I didn't come up with a different thing that I can actually physically prove, hinders me from finding the proof, hinders me from saying I'm not good enough and just giving
Fair.
faith and everything away. So I think it's
That's
a
a fair
cap.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, where was I? But like, okay, now, yeah, that's how I would do it if I would know something about the individual. If I don't know something about the individual, I would probably still show them my short video because I made it very general and still talking about these aspects, and that is why I made it. It's the second video that you find on an3x.org. It's why vegan. We decided to put Dominion back up as the first list because it's also given out on Street Activists when people had already had the conversation, which pretty much sums up this 8 video of mine. And people just say watch Dominion on there, and then it's the first video. You just have to click. In marketing, if you want somebody to buy your shoes, and the shoes that you want to sell, you should make it as easy for them to do the checkout, to do the paying, to do the clicking. And that's why we made that page, because Dominion in Austria and Germany, it's from 18 plus, and you have to do searching or downloading or changing your whatever. Yeah, we made that website for marketing the shoe that is veganism, and marketing it through Dominion and through why vegan. Yeah, if somebody's not at all interested in veganism, I think, or in doing the right thing, that is the parable of somebody not having feet, then you can't get them to go vegan. Like, if somebody's not interested in reflecting their ways, or in this topic of suffering of others and being a responsible person, if they don't care about that, then they pretty much lose their humanity in my eyes. That's what makes us humans, being able to care and being able to change your actions on the basis of caring. But then you can't change them anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you had a really good extensive answer, and it makes a lot of sense too. Um, I actually really like that answer because I feel like, as you said, right, everybody kind of has a role. Every type of activism is worth a lot out there, right? And when it comes to videos, it's interesting that you mention. I haven't watched your 8-minute video, by the way.
Ah,
Like I usually recommend people Gary Yourofsky's speech. I think like that's a really good starter for most people, even if it's not highly 100% accurate, right? Or it has some weird things that he says about cheese being addictive or something like that. But
yeah, I think Gary Yourofsky's speech was what my why vegan video, what I tried to make it be 4 or 5 years ago when people still had attention spans. But now having somebody even watch something longer than a TikTok video is dangerous. So that's why I made it, try to make it concise to 8 minutes. It's in German and English on the website, by the way. And we're on the way of translating it to Polish and French as well. But it's too long. Gary Yourofsky's speech is too long. It's muddled with environment, I think, and nutritious stuff. I don't want that in there. I don't want that in there.
yeah, I have one observation, by the way, that you mentioned. Like I can't let that. I'm sorry. I just, my mind is like that. Like I feel like I wouldn't say religious people are dumb at all. I don't think I've been religious myself, and I wasn't dumb when I was religious. I just think it's one of those things. We all emotionally we have
Okay, but
things
if
that
it's so
we.
intelligent to be religious, then why did you
I
stop?
don't think. Why did I stop? I mean, it's a multitude of factors on how I stopped, really. It's not necessarily why I stopped. It's more like how I stopped. But what I wanted to say wasn't necessarily like, of course, you can have your opinion about that. I also have my own opinion about that. But
Yeah,
I
but
think
I'm
like
here challenging you on that opinion, because if you believe that it's something smart to do, then you would have a reason for that and continue
I don't
doing
think
it.
it's smart or stupid. I think it's just like it's just a thing. I don't think it necessarily has to do. I think religion has more to do with emotional intelligence rather than cognitive intelligence. I think religion is just a thing that people use to cope with. I think most people who are religious don't actually believe all the things that they believe in, but rather just find solace in the idea of community, in the idea of
Yeah.
that somebody's looking after them. I
Yes,
don't think
exactly.
it's
But
an emotional thing.
good, you said you weren't stupid when you were religious, and I give you that. But the act of believing in something that you can't prove, I believe, is stupid. Like that's not, I could believe in a flying hippo right now that tells me to go stab people. That would be fucking delusional. And delusions usually aren't something that I would say are intelligent, even if it helps me grasp, I don't know, the environment here, because I might be lonely in this room. Like you had your reasons and community and whatever to believe in religion. I can be a very smart person working on my thesis or whatever all day long here, but as long as I believe in a hippo, that part, this belief, that does not align with the rest of my smart values.
No, I agree with you that there's contradictions in religion. I agree with you, but I think what I want to say is that I think that we as vegan activists who are public and do things, we shouldn't ostracize religious people and try to not get them, because I think, like, yes, there's intersectionality in the causes between a lot of things we discuss, and you can obviously see, I also see relations between how I turned vegan and how I chose not to believe in God anymore. But I don't think it's necessarily I think people, like, for me, the way I see it, if we want people to go vegan, we need to appeal even to those people, right? Like, if they're religious, it's okay, we shouldn't be criticizing them for being religious, but rather for them not being vegan, right?
I think
Because
we
with
can criticize both and we can do it at the same time. And I
we
think
can, but like some
it's
people, but
delusional.
to some people, religion is it's such an integral part of them that
Yeah, so is eating meat, but it doesn't make sense, is it?
it doesn't, but like with eating meat, you can challenge it that there's somebody else suffering, whereas with religion, if some people
But
can just be religion and nobody suffers, it's just
yeah, I
themselves.
usually say you can believe in Father Christmas, but it doesn't justify slaughtering animals. But literally saying that, and I think you would agree with that, is
I agree with that, yeah.
criticizing but that is criticizing in their eyes their religious beliefs. So I would definitely say something like that. You don't have to go ahead and say, "Prove me God" right now when you're doing outreach. But I would definitely I would see that as mocking. People see that as mocking, and I think
Yeah,
it's
that's the
completely
thing, yeah.
valid. But I think it's necessary. I say, okay, I usually make up something that I call. So when people tell me that their God allows them to eat animals, I think we vegan activists should be carrying around a piece of paper that says "my book" or "the book," and on the first page it should read, "You're allowed to stab humans for their flesh and murder them." So when people come and say the Quran, the Bible, the whatever says I can do, then you should pluck your book and say, well, my book says I can eat you now.
Like, listen,
Is
I agree with you logically. I just think that in order for us to be effective animal rights activists, we need to try to focus on our duty towards the animals. And
mm,
yes, we can also fight against religion, but I think separately, if you ask me, right? Like, I also am an atheist. I agree with a lot of the things you say. I just think that a lot of people tune out the minute you you insult their religion, and including the people watching, including
you
the
can
people
bring the
watching.
argument with no, that's not true. They get very polarized by that, but literally the argument that you could bring, you could say to anything about vegan activism. People tune out as soon as you talk about veganism because
It's
it's too
true. They do
radical.
tune out a lot
Yeah,
of things.
people
Yeah,
tune
that's
out
true.
when you use the Holocaust comparison, when you say
That's
slavery,
true
when you
also.
say
Yeah,
rape. So you shouldn't be hindered of
100%.
somebody tuning out. If they're not ready to accept logic, then they're not ready to accept veganism. Yes, you can be religious and a vegan, but like I said, you can also write extremely well written theses and believe in your floating hippopotamus. But I think that the floating hippopotamus should also be seen as delusional and it should be criticized. And I believe somebody who is not ready to even accept that little bit of stabbing against their delusional belief, they will probably not be ready to accept that they have a role in the animal holocaust. And we shouldn't change our words for that.
I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, there is some power to the words, right? I agree with you on that one, and I think, yeah, you're right. Maybe when you're doing a video, it's very important that you kind of create this wow factor that makes people share it, whether that's like controversial factor, right? Like obviously when you're going to use the word holocaust, or you're going to use the word rape, a lot of people might get triggered by it, right? And some people might share it and be like, look at what this person is saying, look at the ridiculousness of it, and that might prompt some people to say, okay, yeah, I can think about it in another way, right? But I think that the best outreach to do, like in my opinion, right, like it's not I don't succeed in doing this, by the way. I just think like this would be the best approach, is for people to reach that conclusion themselves, not us feeding them those words, but rather that they themselves kind of understand it, right? Like instead of mentioning rape, that they themselves mention it, because they kind of relate to it and how it is, right?
But where does it start? Where does it stop? Like, could you literally say there are literally pick me vegans or non-vegans who say you can't make someone vegan; they have to come to the conclusion themselves. Have they,
Yeah,
if their beliefs are never questioned? Like that situation with my family questioned my beliefs. I wouldn't have gone vegan without it being logically questioned. With the question that arose from they're just animals. You can't compare that. So I think leaving, I would be fucking mad at you if I would have been an old friend of yours and you wouldn't use words like Holocaust and slavery, even though you acknowledge what happens to the animals as such. And you actually made me dabble in the dark and see that you eat your vegan tofu things and I don't, and it takes me longer. Of course, we don't know if the
yeah.
person, as soon as they would have heard the word, would have never turned vegan. We don't know. Maybe they would have been vegan faster, especially since they're your friend and you can trust them with that. And having a trusty conversation, an open conversation, being willing to. Maybe I'm too naive. Maybe I'm too hopeful when it comes to that. But we don't really have evidence for that. So I would
We
rather
don't.
stick to not changing my voice to form adequate
And,
um,
neither you should. I don't
approaches.
think you should change your voice. I don't think any vegan activist out there who's going out there should change their voice, right? Like, I think the conversation that we're having is more like testing out and questioning it, right? I don't know if what I'm saying is 100% correct, right? Like I'm a vegan activist for less than, for what, 6 7 months myself. I don't you have way more experience than and I there's been a lot of times in my vegan activism when I'm wondering if it's would be way more effective for me to just be mean to people so that they kind of remember it, right? Because if I give people a card and that card goes at home and they put it on the shelf and never touch it again, that means nothing. Even if my conversation was good, because then if my conversation is good and people watch it and nobody changes for it, it also means nothing, right? So I don't know which method is better. I'm just trying to like ask and have conversations
Mm.
with activists such as yourself. And
So let me
um,
sum this up, what I think and what I reflected on the last few minutes that we talked about this whole thing. I think we aren't yet at the stage where it really matters if a single person stops stabbing animals. That's the truth. I think our role in activism is bringing forth the discussion about veganism and explaining that veganism has to be the moral foundation. Um, and that not being vegan, even for the individual, is not okay. Even though you and I can probably both agree that it doesn't fucking matter if one person more or less is vegan or not. It does matter for the symbolism that he has in society. It does matter in that way, but it doesn't matter on the consume boycott kind of way yet. If we only have 10 people and one is not vegan, then it matters a whole lot to the one animal who is then being enslaved and murdered. But that is not where we are yet. I think our role as activists is to make the biggest impact in bringing forth the logical debate and shifting. It's called, I think, have you ever heard of the Overton window?
no.
So the Overton window is something of acceptable opinions and even debates to be had in society. And like 50 years ago, I think you could probably also agree the vegetarian was the odd one out,
Yeah.
with grill parties. And probably the vegetarian was more the odd one out than the vegan is today, right?
Um, maybe, and it depends on the
It
places, but
depends
yeah,
on the
yeah,
people that you surround yourself with, the
yeah,
culture, the
yeah, yeah,
country. But
yeah, yeah.
I would say in Austria, it's more absurd to be a vegan and more unacceptable, quote unquote, than it is to be a vegetarian. Like you usually heard, you maybe even heard the term, I understand why they don't eat meat, but milk? Have you ever heard that?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so I think that is a sentence, as mundane as it might sound, especially if we listen to it again and again with especially elderly people, that is something that we fought for as an animal rights movement. And it now comes across as, yeah, they're so conservative, but shit, 50 years ago, that sentence, it would even be been unheard of. Like it would have been something different, something along this window. So by bringing forth more vegan activism in the public eye and making it, we have to make veganism pop culture. That is why I am a meme. We have to make it recognizable. We have to make it easily digestible. We have to make it everywhere. And that is how we shift the window of the sayable, of the thinkable, of the doable, until one day we will have a veganism as the basis of this window, like the fucking foundation. Of course I'm vegan. What the fuck? It's like, of course I don't rape children. That is not something that it was normal in the Middle Ages, for example. I don't know, like, or the age before. Egyptians literally gifted each other little children that they put phallus objects into to make penetration easier. Slaves, children slaves. So we have shifted the Overton window on that, and it's so difficult to get this point across to people, because maybe even you or other people I try to talk to this about, of course we don't rape children, that's usually the answer. But it's not, of course. It's something that humanity, that moral activists have fought for. like of course I don't eat animals. Like, for us the window has been shifted, and we just have to shift that window for everyone else too. And I think we do that best by engaging in this kind of dialogue, by saying things like fuck you to someone, so that they would rather click on this video than on something where we would just had a normal boring conversation here. And bring it into pop culture. Yes.
Interesting. And do you think like, because I think like what I have talked to non-vegans about, and I like during my outreach, I have realized, and I've questioned one thing, is that people kind of confuse vegans with animal rights activists, right? And we ourselves are animal rights activists, and we discuss how to best do animal rights activism. We are also vegans. But my question is, when somebody sees you out there saying all the things, and they see you out for the first time, do you think that they might say, which they some of the people do think that, right, that they might say, oh, vegans are crazy, right? Whereas this isn't a vegan are crazy kind of thing. Vegans are just all types of people, right? That's also why I said let's not bring religion into it, because you can be vegan and religious also. That's why I say all of this, because I'm like, I acknowledge my role as an animal rights activist, that I defend animals, but like as a vegan can be anybody, anywhere, anytime, right? I don't think we should create an image specifically as how a vegan should look like, but rather we should normalize it as much as possible, right? So do you think that when you're doing this, are you going against the normalization of veganism?
Yeah, I read that once. Gary Francione, I don't know how he's pronounced. He made a
Yeah,
statement that he's absolutely against the kind of vegan that runs into restaurants and cries around, because he thinks that makes the vegan more absurd, and people don't want to be identified with that. When I
yeah,
first read it, I was definitely taken aback, and I thought about it for a long time. If that's something that I should continue doing. But now comes the but. For myself personally, I have very many facets to my activism, and I do a lot of different style activisms. And I think that's also a reason why my videos regularly go viral, because people are, she's so nice in this video. Oh man, that actually
okay.
makes sense.
I have seen a
You,
lot of good
you know,
videos of yours, yeah,
yeah.
where you're
So
very nice,
so
you're right.
I do so many different things that I don't really think that is a hazard here. But just generally speaking, I think I understand what Gary Francione tries to say here, and you also, that people don't want to be put in the pot with those militant people. But
Yeah,
then again, you have to start that. You have to shift the window. You have to shift the window, and whoever brings even up the conversation, like even not running into somewhere, just bringing along a Tupperware to a grill party where you have a noodle salad in there instead of a dead animal, is in the eyes of the people grilling similar in I don't want to be the odd one out to someone running in a restaurant. They don't want to be in the same pot as someone who brings their pot to the grill instead of dead animals. So it's a matter, the people who think about these situations and stop their thinking there, they wouldn't have the character strength to reflect on their actions yet anyways, but these
interesting.
radical actions can charge the public conversation on the ethics of veganism, especially if you don't water down the message during that kind of activism. So, like I said, first of all, like once again, we don't have any evidence for anything, but definitely there is evidence that people don't want to be the odd one out, and I think that that is the biggest part of people not becoming vegan, and
I,
we can only shift that by making more activism and by bringing in public dialogue and having other people talk about it in different forms and ways. And I would like to say one more thing to that. Gary Yourofsky said in his speech that there is 4 reasons people are not vegan. You could say that it's grob, it's about 4 reasons. It's not exactly 4 reasons, but it's tradition, habit, taste, and convenience. And tradition, habit, and taste is a given, but convenience, when I made the video Why Vegan, I would shift that to two parts in convenience. The logistical convenience of buying stuff, and that is the biggest aspect of all these reasons, the social convenience. It is socially not convenient to be a vegan. And yeah, that is the most part, the part that holds people back the most, because the worst fear of a human is to be left out and to be eaten by predators, to be left out of the tribe, to be left to the thunderstorms without being able to go back in the cave. That's why we get sweaty hands when we ask someone attractive out. That's why we stutter in social situations that put a lot of that's why we lie. That's the fucking reason for fascism. That's the Milgram experiment in a nutshell. People want to belong, people want to listen to authorities.
yeah,
The prison experiment too. They adhere to the role given. They don't want to
that
fall
was
out
such a
of
weird one.
break.
Yeah,
And there's one more experiment. What's it called? The one where there's 20 people looking at the lines, and one line is always shorter than the other one. And 19 people were contestants who were. Oh God, yes, my brain is now dead. They only acted.
it's
They
okay.
were
It's been two
actors. They
hours.
were actors, and the actors said that the shorter line is the longer line, and the one person he went with the masses. He went with the opinion of the masses, even though he felt obviously uncomfortable with saying that. He said that the shorter one is the longer one, even though it was other way around, because he wanted to belong. And people's scale of following these instructions or following authorities is very high, because we're very social creatures, and the worst thing
Yeah,
is losing the tribe. So we have to make veganism more we have to make it more socially acceptable, but I think we can only do that by pulling big public stunts that might make vegans fall into more disgrace every now and again. Yes.
yeah. So I completely agree with you. I think I I do think that there is a need for belonging that people just don't they think will not get when they become vegan. Um, and I also believe what you said, that it's true. We need, like, as we touched upon before, like, we need all types of activism, right? And one type of activism is where you mention and you get more and more people aware of veganism, and then another type of activism is where, I don't know, maybe you have a person just living a normal life and they're vegan and showing that veganism is just as normal as anything else, right? There's room for all of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was mostly curious about, like, I'm sure that you have thought about that position where it's like if people will relate to a different thing and will create a relationship where they say, well, I know I know a vegan when they see you online and they say, well, I know a vegan and they're not nice, or something like along those lines, because somehow they people don't see directness as niceness. Like literally Dutch people are direct and people call them rude. Like that's just like, it's just weird. Like people just don't like directness for some reason. Yeah, so I completely agree with you on that one. I actually agree. Okay, well, you answered a lot of my questions, by the way. Throughout all of it, like it seems like you're you're pretty good. You completed most of it. I'll ask you a couple more questions, and then I think we'll go to ask some questions from the chat, so that it's already been 2 hours. I don't want to keep you too long. Okay, what advice would you give to someone who is passionate about veganism and wants to become an activist?
I think wanting to become an activist already makes you an activist. It's not some club that you have to join. It's nothing that you have to sign. As soon as you see it is unjust to not be vegan and you're willing to express that, be it with a sticker on your laptop or by just saying something when a family member eats animal products in front of you, you are an activist the moment that you disrupt someone's comfort when consuming animal products and you don't water down their guilty conscience. So does that make sense? As soon as you leave someone not kush when they question you on your vegan beliefs, that makes you an activist. If you don't take a step back and say, no, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. I'm just doing it, blah, 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 blah. Then if you just leave them in that moment of discomfort of saying, yeah, I personally think it's wrong to rape and enslave animals. If you have the guts, and that is very gutsy, simply to say that sentence, not even projecting in words, the judgment that you put on non-vegans, like, why are you vegan? Yeah, it's just a thing I do. Anyways, how was your weekend? Then you're not an activist. If you say, why are you vegan? And you say, because I stand for animal rights. I believe they feel just like we do, and I wouldn't like to be at the slaughterhouse. Boom, activists. Congratulations. Now you have the probably it will not be enough for you to just do it with friends and family. I know that those situations might even be the worst for you. So if you're feeling frustrated about doing this kind of activism with friends and family, then I would definitely recommend that you build a vegan community. I found my first vegan community online in Earthling Ed server until I got kicked out. But I got kicked out of a spin-off Discord, to be fair, because I was for radical language, and yeah, they were rather not. But it helped me a lot to be with vegans who knew the word speciesism. Like I read that online, I was like, wow, that is you know that too. Before I met people in real life who you knew the words and you used the word speciesism, I saw them online, and I was amazed because the first kind of activism that I joined was reducitarian. It was so boring and I couldn't do it. I just didn't want to stand there just holding a sign, getting people to sign off a petition on killing pigs differently. Yeah, you will listen to just follow the spark. Follow your activism spark. We are so different. Like whatever floats your boat, you should make a vegan boat.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is, don't water down the message. Be consistent with your message, and yeah, just speak your message out there, right? However you choose to do it, I guess. That's kind of what I understand.
I do have a little nutshell, the thing that I would give people, and that is exercising your vegan nutshell, like the elevator pitch. Do you know the elevator pitch? Do you know what that is?
I know what that is. It's basically what's your elevator pitch for something is basically saying you have 30 seconds to pitch me this.
Yeah. If you're riding in an elevator with a non-vegan and you could simply tell them or yourself from the past everything that you needed to hear, everything that you needed to see, try to phrase that as concise as possible to be confident in your stance, and read up on logical fallacies, read up on the usual debunk arguments, and try to get eloquent on that if that's the kind of activism that you want to do. If you're rather antisocial and would rather not debate with people telling you how yummy their bacon is, then I can totally understand that, but try to use all the skills that you have, be it art, be it fitness, whatever you have, try to give it a vegan twist, and you are exactly where you need to be. And then the next step is, once you found your identity here, and that will change over time, try to make it as effective as possible. For example, by taking it online, by coaching others, by giving money to federations, organizations, single activists, equipment for activists, whatever. You can always take it up a notch in the effectiveness scale.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. That's nice. I like that. It's a very good advice for everybody. And actually, yeah, what is, let's say you have 30 seconds, what is your elevator pitch for somebody to become vegan?
Veganism is our moral obligation, since animals and animal rights are the logical extension of human rights, because there is no ethically significant difference between non-human human animals that we send to slaughterhouses and humans that would justify raping, enslaving, and holocausting them, but not doing the same thing to humans.
What if you find somebody who says it's okay to do it to humans also? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
then
I'm
they
just
bit a
trying to
bullet.
poke
Yeah.
fun.
Then you usually have to make them repeat their statement again and again and
Yeah.
show them the consequences. Like, repeat it, ask them if they actually meant that, ask them if you might have misheard them by giving them a second chance. Sorry, but it just sounded like you were agreeing with Hitler. Was that what you wanted to say? Is that really your opinion? And if they're willing to take that second chance, they might take a step back. If it's over and they're just there to provoke, make sure that there's a camera on the conversation, frame them. You don't even have to frame them, but put them in the frame, and hold them clearly to what they're saying right now, to not agree with a vegan, and maybe some sane people listening might understand what absurd position he's trying to hold here.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to say, right? So, but if you don't have, because in those cases you don't have a camera, then I guess you just call them a speciesist or a piece of shit and then you
Yeah, I
move
mean,
on.
if you don't, then you shouldn't waste your time on that. It's the marketing term for there are low-hanging apples, low-hanging fruits. You should pick them
Yeah.
first. You shouldn't waste time with an apple that runs away from you and that is not interested in not being a Nazi to animals. Like, if they say, I don't give a fuck, I don't give a fuck. Yes, I'd also eat humans. If somebody doesn't agree with human rights, you cannot extend it to animal rights. Of course, they're usually lying, and you can show them through the examples that they don't mean it. But if somebody's not willing to have that debate, we can actually not force them, which is also something that people tell me all the time. You force veganism on people, you force veganism on people. No, of course, if I could, believe me, you would be forced, but I can't. And you cannot force a moral stance on anyone, anyways. So it doesn't work. You shouldn't
When
you
you say
shouldn't
if I
waste your time.
could, when you say if I could, I would. I'm curious, what does forcing somebody to be vegan mean to you? Because I would agree with that, but I think it means slightly different for me.
Yeah, so forcing people to be vegan, like I said, it doesn't work, because you cannot force someone to have a moral stance. You can only force them to not consume animal products. But veganism isn't just not consuming animal products. It's a moral stance that it's not okay, and that we shouldn't, if given the possibility without punishment, find that okay to do so. So logically, you cannot force someone to have a moral belief. You can only force the action.
Yeah.
But of course, I would prohibit the consumption and selling of animal products. I would prohibit zoos. I would prohibit slavery and selling animals, wearing leather and animal products. So, or at least buying leather and making leather. So that I would legally. So I would make it illegal. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you with that one. Yeah, I think we have exactly the same definition. I was curious because like some people forcing means something else means, and like prohibition as you, yeah, no. Okay, let's everybody ask some questions in the chat. We we're approaching the end. We've been for 2 hours. It's been pretty long. I'm getting tired. I think Rafaela's getting tired, and
Yeah, my brain is not braining anymore. But before I forget, because my brain is not braining, so before I said that Sky from Vegan, of course, is dodging questions all the time, and somebody asked him what he would do with vampires, and then he said, I would let them live. And before he said that the ethically significant difference is it's easy. They're supernatural, so that's a reason that we can go and kill them, not humans. But if we had elf people, then he would also be fine with harvesting elf people because they're also supernatural. It's so absurd. And now he goes around calling me a Nazi.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the problem that I have. The biggest problem that I have with the whole calling predator thing is that, again, the different positions can have totally different outcomes, and you can see it in a totally different way, and that's also why I don't want to get into it again. So
Yeah,
because
I just
otherwise it
wanted to
becomes
point
a whole
out that it's
thing.
okay
Yeah.
to murder supernaturals. I have a screenshot of you saying that they're supernatural, easy. Vampires don't exist. That's a dodge, you said afterwards. And then you said we let them live. So congratulations on dodging and evading and saying they're supernatural. So that's a reason to murder them. Yeah, I wasn't the only one who saw that. So before I leave, I would like to, and we can still answer some questions if there's still questions, but you can find all my socials on raffaelarab.com. Just go to raffaelarab.com, or on YouTube. I have it listed. My English channel is small, but I'm trying to grow it. My German channel is a bit bigger, but my main platform is not YouTube. My main platform is TikTok. And I also post on Instagram on English and in German. And I also coach vegan activists. So we have a big social media network of activists, some of which have now reached also over 100,000 followers on YouTube and on TikTok especially. And we have resources for that if you want to get your activism to be more effective and you're willing to contribute with at least 4 hours of work in your social media a day. Then we can have a chat. You can write me on Instagram, but I need disciplined vegan activists. I don't want to put work in people who just do it for a week and then stop. And I do porn. So if somebody watches me naked and give me money, then go to my websites, and that's it. Yes, and I can answer questions now.
Okay. One. Where can people buy your shirt?
Oh, yeah, we don't have it in English yet. We had to relaunch the shop because somebody threw me out of the handles and is not sending the products that I spent on 10,000 euros, which is great. But we are relaunching the shop end of July in German. And if there's big interest in English, if you want this in English and it says "Be vegan, not brutal" on the back, then we will be quick to put up English stuff too. So if there is a big if the launch of the shop now works, then we will probably have English stuff the following month, and I will probably write it on all my socials.
Okay. What are your stances on bivalves?
I probably wouldn't eat them. I don't eat them, but I understand that there's a discussion, especially on the mushroom basis, but I don't think that we have enough. I don't think that mushrooms are sentient from what I come
I
to
don't think
know.
mushrooms are bivalves.
No.
Uh,
But I'm thinking, because some people say, hey, if you can eat bivalves because they're not sentient. No, if you cannot eat bivalves, we have more reason to believe that mushrooms are sentient. Some vegan activists say, I don't think that there's enough evidence to support that. Then you should also not eat mushrooms. So they pretty much say, if you don't think it's okay to eat bivalves, then you should also not eat mushrooms. I do eat mushrooms. I don't eat bivalves. I don't think that we have enough reason to believe that either is sentient. Yeah.
Interesting. I would argue that bivalves are sentient, mushrooms aren't, but I err on the side of cautions and I don't eat either, to be honest. But
You don't eat mushrooms because you believe they're
I
sentient?
don't. Not because I believe they're sentient, but rather because, well, there was at some point something that some species of mushrooms could, well, not that they could be sentient. No, I don't believe that those animals could be sentient, because I don't believe there's an evolutionary reason for any plant or any form of plant to be sentient. But more because well, I just don't like them. Also, I don't like the taste of mushrooms that much, to be
Okay.
honest. And I'm like, I'll just gonna err on the side of caution on this one and be like, maybe there is a form of sentience that we don't understand. I don't know, but yeah, bivalves, I'm erring on the side that they are sentient more than they're not. Whereas with the mushrooms, I'm erring more on the side that they're not rather than they are, even if there is a gray area in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my.
If
Uh,
somebody has good papers on mushrooms being sentient, then I'm willing to change my positions.
Same.
Yeah.
When do you think we'd see 100% vegan world, if at all? Would we probably be dead and gone due to some world war before we see a vegan world?
Yeah, you can never have 100% of anything.
I believe that.
So even if we have, like, we don't even have 100% human rights world at the moment. So I would give a point to people saying the world is not ready for the vegan message, but that shouldn't stop us from talking about it, and from our activism, especially if it also helps further human rights regards, because it has to be intersectional. I think Central Europe will probably be there in 50 years. Yeah. If we think about it, 50 years ago, gay people couldn't marry here, and women had a whole different view. Like in some countries in Europe, women couldn't vote until 1970. So things change fast, and this window of sayable things. When I studied, when I started my studies in medicine in Munich, that I was 17, 18, there were no chickpeas in the supermarket. I don't know about you, but I had to go to the vegan stores or to these reform stores, those special needs stores, to buy
You mean the
things.
dry ones? The
No,
dry
just
ones or
normal
the
chickpeas. We didn't have
like
that.
in a can?
Yeah, just chickpeas. There was no vegan food in fucking Germany except for tofu. There was maybe soy milk, but I think also just in those special needs places. I drank normal milk, so I don't remember. But I know that I wanted to. We didn't have any of this knowledge, of this talk about veganism. Um, like I became more vegan, more plant-based with 18, 19, and that's when I started to search for these products in the supermarket in Germany when I studied there, and it was harder, way harder to come by, and way more exclusive. Yeah, way more odd one out.
From the moment I started buying stuff for myself in the supermarket, there have been chickpeas, as far as I remember, right?
Mm,
Ever since being 18, basically. So there have been
mm.
chickpeas for me. So, or at least in the supermarkets that I was going to. Interesting that you say there weren't, but I know because I loved hummus. The first thing I did when I was 18, well, when I started buying for myself, was get hummus, and I loved it. And then I wanted to learn how to make it. Never succeeded in making good hummus, but that's a different thing.
Oh, we had good hummus the other day. Just take chickpeas with the water of the chickpeas and with like 2 teaspoons of tahini with lemon, and it's great, great hummus.
Yeah. Do you think sentience is the only criteria to morally consider one's rights?
Yes. What other criteria should be there? Like, do you want to fight for the rights of a chair?
No, I'm guessing like, um, yeah, maybe it is. Depends also on how we define sentience, isn't it? Right? Like I think like if some people define sentience as the capability to have emotions and feel pain, and you find somebody who has a subjective experience but does not have the capability to have emotions or feel pain, then do they deserve moral consideration? I
Sorry,
feel like
sorry.
they
Can you
do.
can you repeat that? I didn't understand.
So the one thing about sentience that I think matters to have moral consideration is subjective experience. I think that that's the only thing that matters. Everything else doesn't matter, like them feeling pain or them uh, having emotions doesn't, like if you find a person who doesn't feel pain or doesn't have emotions, or do we not consider them morally? They still have a subjective experience, but
Yeah, I think they should. That's interesting. I don't think that subjective experience can exist without pain. So that for me, it's pretty synonymous. That's why I was also considering ethylism for a long time. and still am dabbling with that topic. I don't think that you can have sentience without suffering, and I think that suffering sucks. Um, and then it's a threshold question of when subjective experience and the interest to carry on living um, versus the suffering of being alive. You know, that's on a scale, the whole thing and the whole question. But the question, I cannot subtract suffering from the question. That doesn't
Oh,
work.
I can. I personally don't think suffering is a big deal. I just don't think. I don't oppose suffering. I'm like, I mean, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to suffer, but I don't think suffering is something we should necessarily, because suffering is such a subjective thing. Number one, it's also not only subjective as how we feel it, but it's subjective also on how we define it. So I think, right, like if you call me, if you say that I'm suffering because somebody punches me in the groin, I would be like, yeah, I'm suffering, but might be other people who they also suffer, but they like it, right? So that's
Yes,
why I
but
don't think
then it's not
suffering is
suffering
necessarily.
to them, right? If you like something, then it's not, then you're not suffering.
But a masochist acknowledges that
Yeah,
they
but
like
then he's
suffering.
not, I don't think that that really works. It's not, in that moment, he doesn't feel pain as a negative thing. I think the word pain only works as a negative thing. Otherwise, it's not pain. Then it's not like
I
pain.
don't think pain is negative. I'm sorry, I don't think pain is negative.
Oh,
Also, I think
Jesus.
pain.
Okay, imagine I put you on a stretcher and I tore your limbs apart and you were
Okay, let's
quivering.
redefine.
Wait. No. And you were
But I know
quivering.
what you're doing. I just want to be sure, because I know where you're going with this. I'm just trying to say that I'm not saying that I don't like pain. I obviously don't like pain, but I'm saying that pain is a natural response we get
Yes.
so
And
to run away,
saying that
right?
it's
It's
okay because it's a natural thing is a naturalistic fallacy.
uh, n- okay. Let me rephrase then. You're right. It is a naturalistic fallacy. I'm not saying that. Um, coming from a what I'm trying to say is coming from a perspective where I learned that negative emotions, they're not actually negative. They're emotions that have a role. Pain has a role. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm not
It
saying
isn't
that it's
inherently
useless, but I'm
positive or
saying that
negative.
it sucks. If I could have the choice of having, for me personally, I think I'd rather not have been born. But now that I'm here, I have this annoying thing called interest to live. And I don't know if it's just subjective, if it's just, I definitely don't want to suffer. That's it. And I'm scared of death. Um, is that enough to say that life in itself is good? I wouldn't say so. I don't think that that is enough to say that the good outweighs the bad. I think I'm just too scared to end it. So
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know how to say this nicely, but like, if you really truly feel that way, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I have had moments in my life when I felt that way, and I seeked therapy, and it has helped, and I'm at a place now where I agree that life, there is no point to life. I'm a nihilist still, but I agree that I'm only given one, so might as well do the best out of it, whatever that means to
yeah,
myself.
I mean, you can either choose, either you kill yourself or you accept that it's gonna suck and you stick through it because you're gonna die there eventually. So that's something that I have days where I sway more on the side of I'm not accepting this for the next 60 years if I am so lucky. Um, but I don't personally, I wouldn't procreate because I don't think we should have more of this.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I also don't necessarily want kids, but that's not the reason why I don't want kids. I won't say that's the reason why. Um, it's but yeah, I agree to your perspective that if you don't like life, then perhaps, or existence in itself, then you might also argue that nobody should exist at the end of the day, right? What my perspective is that, yeah, existence is not necessarily the greatest. There's moments when the existence kind of sucks, but to each their own. It's, yeah, for me, I decide what I decide. If somebody else wants to exist, they should exist, but without causing suffering or pain for others, or well, not suffering. We see, I come back to suffering, but without inflicting on somebody else's rights to choose what they want to do with their life. Huh. Yeah. So I assume you're an anti-natalist in the
Yeah, so
based on what you said.
I am for myself. I don't know. Well, I'm pretty sure that I can't formulate an argument against all kinds of children having children. So I don't think it's a moral obligation to not have children, because there's obviously some people who say, I love being born and stuff, but the chances of that happening, and you always create more suffering than somebody who was already there. So I don't think it makes sense. I don't understand why you would, because there's not an island of unbred souls, most probably, that says, born me on this planet, make me subjectively experienced. So no, it's a no for me.
Interesting. Okay, I also remember I had a question from Vegan Gains who asked, how do you think Berserk will end? I honestly don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
How do you think Berserk will end?
I didn't start it yet, Richard. I watched Akira, and I was very much smitten by me being way too stupid to that. I think I watched, because Richard told me I should watch Akira. I watched 3 YouTube videos
It's an anime.
on Akira, making sense of it. I feel too stupid. I'm sorry. That I am. Yeah,
It's
I
okay.
think I got the Berserk thing saved. I started like the first 2 pages, but I'm not there yet to tell you how it will end. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw a question that I want to answer. Does Chip distinguish what is harmful and what is suffering? Yeah, I mean, harm is, that's a good question, actually. Like, if you have only one individual, can you have harm? Or is harm always applied to the other individual? What is the difference between harming and suffering when you only have an isolated case of one individual? Is there a difference?
Suffering is the reaction to something being
Oh, that's a
harmful
fair point.
to
That's a
an
good point.
interest, right? It's a
Yeah,
semantic
you're right,
question. I don't
actually.
understand it from an, is it an ethical question?
I don't know. I have no clue. But I mean, we're done with the questions. I'll ask you some end of the thing questions because I'm tired. I think you're also tired.
Yeah, but
Okay, what is the argument against veganism that you dislike the most?
so the worst one that comes up the most in Austria and in Germany is they just taste so good. I cannot wrap my head around how people bring in taste pleasure in a question of holocausting animals. It's so unauthentic. It's so dishonest. It's really disgusting how people can say that without listening. I think they listen to themselves. I think they acknowledge just how stupid they sound, but they do it nonetheless to fit into their troll people, and it's disgusting to me. It shows the worst people. The worst
I
people.
agree with that one. That is a very bad argument. Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite vegan dish nowadays, if you have one? Maybe it's maybe you like it because it's easy to make. Maybe it's because it's delicious. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's nutritious.
Mm, oh, my boyfriend made this really good hummus the other day. That was really good. But I don't really have a favorite dish, I think. Like nothing that I would probably noodles with tomato sauce and tofu is something that I can always eat. Yeah.
That's a good one. I have that a lot. I can agree with that. I can attest that's a good one. Okay. What is, in your opinion, the worst logical fallacy that carnists make?
Um yeah, it's always been that way. They're just animals. That's because the second one, because it's triggering so hard to me how people cannot hear themselves when they say they're just animals, and I try to tell them that it's literally racism to animals. And
what's that logical argument called? That's called, that logical fallacy is called,
No,
it's
that's
called begging the
sorry. It's
question, right?
probably not even. It's not even a logical fallacy. It's only a logical fallacy when you extend it to speciesism, what that means. But it's always been that way. So a good old naturalistic, sorry, traditional fallacy. That's painful enough.
Yeah.
Oh, and the
Okay. Yeah.
lions. I think the lions are international. The animal that people always use. Like, I'm excited whenever somebody says, but the shark eats the fish. Like, wow, you said a shark? Sure, you don't want to say a lion? That barely happens.
I agree. Yeah. For me, it's also the appeal to nature. So
Mm.
it's just annoying.
If it's okay for you,
Okay.
I would post my link tree, my English link tree in your chat.
Oh, please go ahead. I hope you can. That I
Yeah,
posted
I hope you
the
can.
link to your. If not, give it to me in private, and I'll post it.
Yeah,
I
that would be
posted the
amazing.
link
If
to
you
your
could
website.
just if you could pin it in a comment, that would be cool. Those are my English links, and my German links are here.
I favorited it. I don't know what that means. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll put the. Wait, what? Oh no. Yeah. Okay. I'll link tree. Yeah. I'll let me write it down so afterwards. I'll put it in a comment. Link tree. That's a very good one. I'm learning already. Huh? Okay. If you could erase, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, is that the last question now? Because I'm like dead, and we still want to go to the gym, and I don't even know if it's still open now.
Yeah. Okay. If you could make it so that if you could erase one logical fallacy off the face of the earth, like just one, which one would you be? Like nobody would ever have that logical fallacy ever
Yeah,
again.
well, if you only give me 10 seconds to answer, I would probably say the appeal to tradition, because it's used for so many other atrocities. I think it would change a lot also on human rights basis, that people could not bring this anymore. But there's probably a more thought through answer to this if I would give it more time. But yeah,
No,
I think
that's a
the
good
appeal
point.
to tradition is something harsh and covering a
And the
lot.
last question: if you could make anybody in the world vegan, like this,
Huh. Oh, that's good. Phew.
could be a public figure, could be a friend, could be a family member. Who would you make
Probably
vegan?
Trump, right? I mean, he has a huge, I think, doesn't Trump have the biggest influence at the moment? I think that would be fucking. The people follow this guy. They even inject himself disinfectant into their veins, so they might as well be vegan and say, "Make America vegan again."
I said Mr. Beast, but another good answer that I heard was the Pope, which I never ever thought about, because the Pope kind of discusses ethics. He's kind of like an ethical leader, right, of so
Yeah.
many billion people. So in that sense, maybe I don't know between that if he would be better, because like if he says it's unethical to do this to animals, might be that a lot of people would stop.
I think there's definitely something. Those questions are fun as a game, like here,
Yeah.
but the first
Yeah.
answer is probably not always the best answer. Like if you would give me a week time,
Think about
then
it. Think about it.
I think logically religious leaders make a lot of sense. That you said it now,
Yeah,
Mr. Beast. It depends. If he's just like a vegan, but he doesn't make videos on that,
that's
then
also true.
he would have a feastable thing that sells vegan food. Okay, great. But I explicitly chose Trump because he's very vocal about whatever he currently does. There's probably other political leaders, but I think or political people, I don't even know the names of them. I just know Trump. That's why I said him. I think I don't think that Biden would be as loud about whatever he finds appalling. I don't know. Like I said, but I just know that Trump is very direct and would probably
Yeah,
make fun of non-vegans. So that would be hilarious.
I don't think I
Yeah.
would want Trump to be vegan. I think I want him to be
What
vegan,
the
but like
fuck?
I
You
don't know,
don't
like
want
I
Trump
feel
to be
like
vegan?
I don't know if I would want any political figure to be vegan, because that would inherently mean that any opposite political figure would endorse non-veganism, right?
I would want everybody to be vegan,
No, of
because
course
they're
not. I don't mean
already
it that
endorsing
way.
non-veganism right now.
Of course, everybody should be vegan, but I mean, like, if I could have one person be vegan, I don't know if I would choose a political person for that reason, that then the opposite political view might op- go against veganism, which I don't want. That was my point. Not, of course, I want
Yeah, but
everybody to
I
be
mean,
vegan.
they are going against veganism already, and like I said, if we have those big debates, I think it would shift the window of stuff again. So that's good.
That is good. Yeah. Okay, Raffaela, thank you for being here. I usually end the stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I usually end the stream with a nice little message for the people in the chat to go and do some activism. I will let Raffaela handle this one, and in to, to try to get you to go and do veganism. Raffaela, I also put this music. I don't know, maybe it will help you with your speech saying it.
Go ahead. Ooh,
It's a
okay,
bit of
shit. Yes. So if you're listening to my words right now, please go to the page an3x.org, and I'm saying this without a joke, and look at fucking Dominion. If you've never seen slaughterhouse footage before, please look at Dominion in whole and look at the short video, Why Vegan? It's only 8 minutes on that page, an3x.org. And if you are already vegan, but you want to have more influence on the people around you, then please don't be the kind of vegan who shies away from confrontation, but level up your eloquence on the arguments against veganism. Stand your ground, be confident for the ones who can't speak. Bring it online. If you are absolutely antisocial, then that's okay too, but try everything that you have in your skill set to give it a vegan twist, to be the kind of vegan that the animals need, not the ones that the non vegans want.
You heard it, everybody. Go out there and be the vegan that the animals want you to be, not the ones that you want to be. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you, Nothingness, for being a member. Thank you, Ulf, for saying that I look good naked. Thank you, Marcos, for the donation and the vegan activist. Thank you, Vegan Games, for being here. I hope you visit Rafaela's Linktree thing. I will put it in the comments. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Try to live vegan. And by the way, like, I think everybody knows that Raffaela and I are definitely different styles of activism. We don't deny. We definitely have opposing points of views. But as you can see, we can have nice conversations. We can agree to disagree. We can agree on everything. So my whole point is we can all unite on the idea that we want a vegan world. So let's unite on the idea that we want a vegan world. Okay, everybody? It's not so hard. It's just not. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you
Have a
for
good
having
one.
me. Thank you so much for your activism too. Thank you.
It's been nice.